Half of my life out here in the valley, and I got politics. You can blame that just about on everything that seems to be nowadays. You can blame that on President Trump. He came down the escalator and announced that he was running for president, and I told myself this is going to be the best reality TV show that I've ever seen that Hollywood didn't produce. Hasn't let me down since day one, but I started paying attention to politics at that point. Before then, never paid attention at all. And then started paying attention to what was happening here at home and saw how much things mirrored what you can see on a national level. Here it is happening at a local level, and couldn't keep my mouth shut. Just started up page Politadick and kind of history from there.
Um, why do you think you spend as much time as you do out in the public, just having communication with people and informing people about what's going on, about businesses and the community? What makes you do that more so than other people?
I just can't. I'm not a person to sit back and watch things happen around me. If I can do something about it, I'm going to try to do something about it. I noticed one of the, because of paying attention to politics here, like I've been, I could actually start to pick out patterns of what I was seeing happening in the media, what the legislators were doing, what they were saying. Began to get to know them personally too, showing up at their meetings and listening to what they had to say, and then started recording them and trying to get the information out there that I think is important for people to know. That's the stuff that I keep delving down into and I keep repeating or re-showing, because it may have happened last year, but guess what, folks? Here it comes again. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to look at what's happening in Anchorage or in lower 48 right now, especially, and have a really positive mentality towards it. But the reality is that the reason why I'm doing this, the reason why I'm sure that you do what you do, sir, is that stepping out of the box, stepping out of your comfort zone. Reaching out and touching base with people that have similar concepts and similar mentalities about, political spectrums, or, just in business, or just the way the government's currently running, and just coming to that common ground. And how important is that nowadays, sir, to really, hammer away on how important it is for people to have to come to a common ground and work together to solve problems. Because I just feel so divisive right now. It's very unfortunate.
I wish I could find a common ground out there. I seem to find myself over and over again, seem to be repeating the same thing. When I show up to the protests that people are having out there, I'm seeing the same faces. It isn't new faces. When they showed up in Anchorage at the Lusac Library, going against what Ethan Berkowitz and the Assembly was doing back then, 500-600 people showing up outside, and you could just hear that our voices are not being heard. And it's kind of like I want to compare it to the mask mandate that they had out there in Palmer, that the community council was trying to pass out.
How close this thing so it's not listening to them at once.
What was that, Noria?
Oh,
what did you say? Hello.
I think we're good.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to get between Zoom and Facebook.
I hear you.
So just
no problem.
Mute me.
Yeah, you can talk you're welcome anytime. So just talk anytime. I'm not muting anybody this call. We don't have any this is definitely a community outreach call, just kind of touching base on reaching out. I really want to highlight this gentleman's page and give people an opportunity to go and take a look at it and the work that he does. I think it's a very instrumental piece to Anchorage, and I'm very, very privileged and happy to have him on and working with him and talking with him about, we've actually been in communication for a little bit, which has been, it's been fun to see how things have progressed this year politically. And we're both pretty happy with how not 100% happy, but pretty happy with how a lot of the political area shook out with some of the senators and House representative members and people like that being elected. But the real focus right now is Anchorage, and the reason why I say that is because it's the most similar to like Seattle or Portland that I've ever seen. In its current form. It's like in the time that I've lived in Anchorage, I used to own a house there, worked there for almost a decade, and loved it. It was a great place. But the problem is that, the crime was getting out of control, and my house got almost broken into. I got robbed at one point. So I know that there's my car got wrecked into. There's just and then somebody just drove off and left it. So it's just like it was just one thing after another, and it's just like that's how I felt. I think a lot of other people feel that way too.
I mean, I'm growing up there as a kid. You could sit there and leave your truck door open. Didn't have to worry about locking your windows, locking your door when you walked out of the house. It was a wonderful thing. You knew all your neighbors, and it was a real community growing up there. I'm not as old as a lot of people want to think. But I'm old enough to know that going through the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, things were pretty mellow. I mean, Alaska was Alaska. We were the place you went to. Everybody dreamed of going. The land was your opportunity to be able to do something. And then I watched the strangulation hold just slowly begin to creep in. And what you could do, you're no longer able to do. It's now regulated. You got to have all these permits. If you don't have X amount of money, you don't get to go nowhere. It just got tighter and tighter and tighter. The land of opportunity kind of kept shrinking.
Let's talk about a little bit about that area in particular, because I think you and I have similar sentiments. Because I actually moved from Anchorage to Palmer before moving out of state, and so Palmer was a really welcoming place, and I highly recommend everyone to go and visit there because it's a beautiful place. It's still a really beautiful place. I just hope a lot of Anchorage people don't move there, don't ruin it. That's my opinion. Anchorage is it's just not a really positive place. I don't have a lot of like really good things to say about it, and that's sad because at one point I did, and I think that's primarily to do with the leadership.
Oh, most definitely.
I want to highlight your experience around that, like the fact that you went to these meetings and the fact that you were out there and you had the feelings. A lot of the court hearings and things that I've been associated with and the various individuals I've communicated with, they're all doing things and they're all busy and like they're actively involved, but they're involved in different areas. You had boot on the ground experience. You were there in person dealing with around the time that these hotel purchases were going on around. I wasn't, obviously. So like, I want to hear your opinion and your background around that time period, and then, how was the mayor handling the situation prior to locking down the assembly? How'd that go? Did the mayor just be like, oh, it's just like obviously a public health emergency, or was this because he was getting so much negative feedback that he decided to close it down? Which one was
it? In my personal opinion, he shut it down on purpose. He was getting tired of all the negative feedback day after day after day coming walking in through that door. And we're not talking the same faces neither day after day. These are hundreds and hundreds of people. At one point, they had a rally out there. They had the front of the entire Lusac Library and the street just lined with everybody out there protesting against what was going on. The mayor didn't seem to care if you had, he openly admitted, so did Constant there, Mayor Berkowitz at the time, other assembly members, they all, would you just call anybody that had a dissenting view, oh, you're just racist. And I wish I could say I was joking there, but when you put a rabbi up there like Constant did and make those Nazi remarks,
cover that a little bit in detail, because I don't think a lot of people know that story. I really don't. I think some people do, but I think that a lot of people are so busy with their day-to-day lives that they don't really understand that like these people are really sick. They're sick, truly sick people.
Right, okay, well, got Chris Constant. We had a rabbi go in, and he had shown up to testify about the homeless problem that was going on, coming into his community, how close it was to where he was in partition, so to speak. And Chris Constant made a reference that was basically anybody out there would have to be an idiot, but it was considered a very Naziist. Yeah, I'm a Nazi. You're a Nazi. We're going to compare these homeless living inside of cages, compare them to the concentration camps. Is the gist of everything that he kind of put out there towards this rabbi, and it caused the room to go into a complete uproar. Everybody that was in there couldn't believe it. They were absolutely flabbergasted. This case came out of his mouth. Mayor Berkowitz is sitting over on the side in the chamber there, just totally ignoring it, like nothing's gone on here, nothing to see, just keep on going. Never heard anything back from the mayor about that particular incident until a little bit later. But the next day, Chris Constant started out the meeting, and they kind of seemed to had to prod him into doing it, was to make the statement and apology to the rabbi that he had insulted the day before. And but it wasn't a heartfelt, not in my opinion, apology for what he had said. He was only doing it because he was pressured into it. He full-heartedly felt what he said during that meeting.
Were you at the meeting whenever the mayor like went and hid in the car?
You mean the one where he got walked out of there and was confronted by the people at the very end at midnight?
Yep, and then he read and hid in the car after that.
Yeah. I was actually, I got the viral clip that was made on that particular scene there.
Oh
I
man,
was there
I
for
love
the
that.
larger part of the protest during the day.
I think I watched that. That was good. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yep. I was a little concerned seeing, the little bit of getting directly into chest to chest there for a little bit. Myself, I consider that just a little over the top. It did make for great media. But I think the kicker was
looking back though, if there's anyone to get chest to chest with, man, I mean, I'm just saying, this is my own independent, personal, humble opinion here. I'm just saying, that they, I personally met a couple really great people up there in Alaska, but that's one person I have a pleasure of saying I've never personally met.
I have unfortunately met him more than once. I had more than one-on conversations with him over the last couple of years doing what I'm doing. It's hard to get close to him. I'm not one of those constituents that he likes. I can approach the governor any day of the week and walk right on up to him and shake his hand and ask him how his day is going. And Governor Mike Dunleavy and I will just sit down and have a conversation. Trying to approach Berkowitz, on the other hand, it was like trying to chase down the quarterback who had the football that the defense had snuck around the back, and he couldn't throw it nowhere and had to run for his life. It was just one of those, here's these big guys coming for you. He saw me coming. He was running the other direction, put people in my way, so I couldn't go and talk to him. And
that's what Berkowitz has always done. Pardon my interruption. I'm so sorry.
No, Noria, please, you're not interrupting.
And I just want to say, I've only been up here for 6 years now, and I have fought tooth and nail for this state. My boyfriend has Alaska tattooed over his heart. So to me, this is actually the first time I ever felt safe until SB 91. And then I got really hard into it with the politicians about SB 91, because I've had guns pulled on me when they didn't see me sitting in the car, when I was warming up my car. And it's been, I was born in Chicago. My mom was shot in the leg when she went to medical school. I grew up in Southern Arizona. So I certainly know crime. And up here was a very safe place, a very good place to live for a very long time. I guess for me, it felt like a very long time. It was maybe only a couple of years, but then it became very dangerous. And it's one of those things where I used to carry a 9mm, and forgive my language, but over my left breast, because you can't see them because I have big boobs. So I used to carry a small 9mm in my left breast, so that way if somebody pulled a gun on me, I had one too. this shouldn't be like Chicago. This shouldn't be like Southern Arizona.
Yeah.
You know, and Berkowitz ruined all of that when he was like, oh, let's make it a sanctuary city. Oh, like you said, you can't get to him. My boyfriend won't let me punch him in the face because he tells me to be nice. But it starts to wear thin on my nerves. You know, I'm good friends with Butch Moore, who his daughter Bree's Law. He's one of our neighbors as well. You know, his daughter was killed by her boyfriend, and almost nobody gets punished for anything here. You know, the whole process here is just totally out of whack. And we're a state that they just, I don't know, we're experimental, and it's not okay. I mean, I spent 2 years working just in like politics alone and going to assembly meetings. I've been almost kicked out by Bruce twice. The guy has a gun, you know, the security guard. And it's one of those things that like you have to keep fighting until you get your way. Because all these other Forrest Dunbars and these dingbats, they get whatever they want.
Well, it's because they fight for it.
It's not okay.
And they work for it.
Well, and that's just it.
Well, it's like what I was
who
trying
wants
to
be an engineer or a lawyer?
Obama.
Well, and that's just it. Who's going to go and be an assembly member making under 40 grand a year when you have a law degree or you have an engineering degree?
Well, it's because your ultimate goal is something bigger in their circumstance, like Dunbar.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, you're right. That is the problem. I agree with you. They should be business owners. They should be people that are responsible for things, not people that just like are just trying to become more politician and like grow in their politician-esque world. It's just, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
I think our representatives, I think representatives across the board should be that way.
I appreciate your working so hard in this, even when you don't live in this state, because this is not my home state as well, but I do feel like it's home. I feel like Alaska was always in my heart.
I'll definitely own property in Alaska again. I love Alaska. It's a beautiful place.
Right? It is. And it's absolutely amazing. And the people are so kind. I always tell people in the lower 48, I'm like, it's like Texas and Canada had a baby. It's huge, pew, pew, pew guns. Yeah. And hey, how you doing? Like super nice. Like, you know, I mean, people here are the greatest people. Frank McCreary is my neighbor. Like I went and I visited all these neighbors before we even bought our house. So I feel very, very blessed to be here, but I also feel so inclined to stand up and take action because we can in this state. And so we really need to.
You're right. You're right. There's only there's 700,000 people, right?
Right.
So that's a population of the city I grew up in.
Right.
You know what I mean? Alaska is small enough to fix the problem. And that's the reality. Absolutely. Here. I want to fix the problems here where I live now, but the problems are so big that like I literally work in the rest of my life trying to fix them, and I may never still fix them. I'm on Bainbridge Island, just outside of Seattle. So my target would be trying to fix Seattle, but I don't know if that would be even a possibility at this point.
I don't think that it is, unfortunately. It's kind of like Arizona. I gave up in politics in Arizona because not that I was trying to get into it, but trying to do anything. You know, there's just so many people. There's more people in the city of Tucson than there is in the entire state of Alaska.
Yeah. And like, there's nothing wrong with Alaska. I mean, with Arizona, it's just like you said, there's just a lot of people. And so trying to get movement or trying to get things fixed is just so much harder. It's not saying you can't do it. It's just like the work that you have to put in. And if you don't love the place, you're not willing to put it in. And like, that's the thing about Alaska. You know, I think most of us, at least on this call, can admit that we love Alaska enough to put in the work. And like I said, I love this state. I love the people there too.
Well, and all of us care for the greater good of this state. That's the biggest thing, you know, and sometimes I do think that Alaskans get in their own way because they're too Canadian nice. Like I said, they're pew pew about their guns like Texans are, and they have a big state. But a lot of it is that, you know, they want to be so nice to everybody and just assume that everybody else is nice. That's not it. Like I said, my mom was shot when she was going to medical school one day, you know, in the leg. She hit the guy in the head with her purse, and thankfully he didn't get a shot off in her head, you know. So it's one of those things that, you know, it can be a lot worse. And people here really need to, and I think that people are. I think the biggest problem is that a lot of people think that Alaskans are stupid, and they're not. They're very intelligent people. Just because they're a bunch of crazy rednecks up here doesn't mean that they're not And I use that
We just
coming from a
keep to
redneck
ourselves.
family.
We're not rednecks. There's a big difference.
Wait just a second now. I don't know. The girls here are more redneck than I thought I'd ever be. And I'm from Arizona. So, and my mama has a cattle ranch. So I don't know. The girls up here can hunt way better than I could. So we'll see if
I can see that.
if I can handle it.
I can see that.
So I appreciate Alaskans. I think that they work really hard for everything. They appreciate what they have. They're grateful for everything. And I think they try and give to each other as much as they can.
It's a tough place to live. You have to be very strong-willed to live in Alaska too.
You do. I know it's a little bit different for me. I thought that I was hardcore redneck. In Arizona, I was. Here, I ain't nothing. So, but I'm proud to be an Alaskan.
Noria, since you're on the phone, or on the Zoom, I have a question for you. So, did you have any kind of involvement in the meetings at all when that came down to like the when your hotel purchases and like COVID money distribution and all that, or were you kind of not in the loop just yet?
No, I don't think that I was at those. I wasn't at those meetings, unfortunately.
Good. That's good.
I'm not sure if they'd turned them off at that time, or if they'd like sanctioned us to the other auditorium. But I do go down there quite a bit. I've been quite active. Mia Costello is actually our senator for our district. She's actually thanked me to the Madam President.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's 4 women that she thanked, and one of them was me. I'm extremely politically active. And that's probably why Frank and I are friends. You know, he's always asking me if he could put signs in my yard. And I'm like, yeah, Frank, do whatever you want. Have a good time at it.
Well, no, I have a question, just regarding that time period. If let's just say hypothetically, the mayor did close down the meetings because of public testimony, you would obviously have a problem with that, I assume.
I had a massive problem with it. Well, one of the things was they would only let so many people in. So all of us stood in line, and they'd only let so many people into the auditorium where families got to sit together or things like that. You know, the guy with the box on his head and all that stuff. So you have to show up hours early to try and get in. But yet in the other auditorium at the LUSAC, they don't have people like separated at all. And they have more than people that they have in the other auditorium. So they're really not doing anything to try and make sure that people don't have COVID. And I have already had COVID, and I just tested negative, thankfully. But it was a real pain in the butt, you know? And it's just one of those things that like, no, you shouldn't be able to keep people from public testimony. And even after, so when, what's her face? Austin, whatever, who's now
Austin Quinn Davis.
Yeah. When they had put her into office, I was there that night. And, you know, it was absolutely ridiculous. Like, she wouldn't let me speak a second time, even though there was more time left. And she's like, you've already spoken. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. And technically, and like I said, I've been almost thrown out a few times because they've also said, well, you can't speak, you know, more than 2 or 3 minutes or whatever it is. And I had other people giving me their minutes. Well, according to what the Alaska statute is, or the Anchorage statute or whatever is, you actually, it doesn't say anything in there about people gifting you their minutes. And so I've been recorded a few times. I've been on the news a few times for different things because I get a little rambunctious. And obviously I like to talk, but
yeah, it's great. And I appreciate it. Cause like, that's what this whole thing is about. And that's what I want it to be about. And that's why I want people to join. I want people to talk. I want people to, you know, like that's the problem is the media spins the direction of all conversations. So everything that happens in the world, the media spins it whatever direction they want to fit their narrative, whatever their boss tells them to do. This gives us an opportunity to break through all of that and get like, just be able to tell stories that are actually happening and bridge divides between, you know, various parties and realize that we're never going to fix any of these issues unless we work together.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm a nonpartisan because I want to decide whomever I want to vote for. I am going to base whom I vote for on the actual candidate. And to be quite honest, I think that with some of the mayoral candidates, you've honestly made it a little bit hard on me because I like the 2 who have been on the Zoom so far.
Hey,
so
you know, that's the whole point though. Hey, I got some good news for you guys since you're on the call. Some special news. that the only people on the call will ever be able to hear, and that's just the way it is. So that's the best part about these calls. You get new info and stuff like that. But that's a good point. The mayor candidates that they both did really well. Dave Bronson and Mike Robbins are both tremendous individuals, and they both would be great representation for Anchorage, in my opinion.
I agree, and that's what's hard, is trying to decide between the two. And you had spoken about that the other day, about like having too many kind of in the pot, and you got too many irons in the fire.
Well, the good news is they're actually going to be meeting on Tuesday, supposedly. Well, we'll see how many of them actually. I know that there's an invitation or a letter, but I believe
what's all this I've been hearing about? You got the meeting that I know you're talking about now with the.
Let me make you. I want to spotlight you real quick. I'm trying to make it where I can see your face on Facebook. I don't think I can. I think your audio's off, unfortunately, so I can't make your face show up on the Facebook feed.
That's okay. Yeah, no, it's one of those things I'm looking at when you got the two mayors right now. I'm hearing a lot of squawking. There's a lot of dissenters out there that are saying Mike Robbins didn't contact any of the other candidate mayors out there for this meeting. He only put it on social media and blindsided them, is what I'm seeing being posted all over the place. Is that true? I mean, have you heard anything that's making? I mean, as far as I know, I got both candidates.
I'll be honest. I mean, I think most people understand that the timing was relatively specific, because these two guys were going at each, they were going against each other for a good couple months now, and they weren't really talking or doing anything. And I think that the meetings, at least highlighting the two candidates, gave them the motivation to reach out and talk to one another. I think that both sides have goodwill, 100%. I do not think either one of them have any malicious intent.
I agree with
in
that
any
completely.
way. Yeah, and so that the other person.
Yeah, I got to meet them both the day they came out and announced they're at the Lusac Library. They showed up for one of the meeting protests that was going on out there, and they were announcing their candidacy, one on one side of the walkway, the other one on the other side of the walkway out there. And
I will point out that both had a tremendous amount of people come and watch but there was some question about. I want to clarify. There were some questions about why the video was deleted, and so we deleted all the videos and re-edited them and redistributed them. So the full 1 hour long videos are on the website, and they can be viewed at any time. Must Read Alaska, David Cuddy, Mr. Cuddy, with you got Lieutenant Governor, former Assembly member, retired general, and retired CEO of the Alaska Aerospace Corporation, Craig Campbell. You have Suzanne Downing with Must Read, and we have the two mayor candidates. And there's just tons of video footage of covering all of them. And then the exciting news is we're going to be Bill Evans is going to also go on a one-on-one call with us. So we'll have he'll have his 1 hour video as well here hopefully soon.
What is Bill Evans? What party is he registered with?
I believe he's independent. I have to clarify, but I'm pretty sure he's definitely more in the moderates area than Bronson or Robbins, in my opinion. But
well, I think that like you said before. Oops, sorry.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm one of the ones that the candidates hate out there. I'm just undeclared.
That's okay. I mean, it's harder to target you, that's for sure.
Yeah, I get to hear both sides from them. They both when it comes to election season, I'm receiving both of their mailers, not just the one party.
Well, since we're let's touch a little bit of base. Let's contrast. You guys saw Bronson, you guys saw Robbins, and you guys knew who Berkowitz was. Contrast your opinions of Bronson's take on Anchorage and his kind of strategy and plan, and then Robbins, and then Berkowitz. What's your opinion on those? How different are they? Because my opinion is that obvious Robbins and Bronson are more quality representation to very well spoken individuals, very successful for both of their individual, and then also it seems like they're both willing to stand up and fight too, which is something I really care about.
Well, and I feel like I do feel like that's a very important thing. And that's why I think what you had said in a prior cast, it's going to be hard because if we end up dividing over, two Republicans, then we may not end up getting one in. Berkowitz, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of like California. He can just fall into the ocean. And I'm pretty much like, nice. I felt that way about him the whole time. And I felt the same way about Walker. When I first moved up here and when I moved, I read an article about Walker and I was like, well, your governor is a piece of crap. And everybody seemed to like him at the time. And then of course he's a piece of garbage. And so was Berkowitz. Who takes pictures of their butts? Like, just do it in person. I don't know. Be a normal person.
Great question. I have wondered the same question. I still don't know the whole story behind this. I don't think anyone really does. So like, I'm just gonna leave that up to speculation.
I don't care. I'm just glad he's out. I'm just glad he's out. He's been garbage since he's been in there. And the hard thing is I don't want us to try and have to pick, if we have people who are coming out to vote, and it's going to be a stupid mail-in ballot, which I don't know if you know this, but it's actually out of Colorado. I did a lot of research on this.
The ballots are
actually a company out of Colorado. Yeah.
So the ballots are printed in Colorado and they're sent out of Colorado to Alaska.
Yes. And then they're actually counted here and then there.
That's exciting.
But it's a Colorado company and it's a liberal company. So It's interesting once you do a bunch of research, which I've had way too much time to do. So
it sounds like you definitely are very plugged into the political arena for sure. So that's good.
Well, you have to be, or else this place is going to go to hell, and I'm not going to have that on my watch. So, good. Like you said, Seattle is dying. I haven't watched that yet. I'm going to watch it, but is Anchorage dying? Not on my watch. Like they'll take me out first, and we'll see if they can take me out because nothing does. So, I've lived this long. I can fly a helicopter. Pretty sure. Well,
I'll be okay. We'll be covering Is Anchorage Dying through 2021. I want to clarify. The reason why we spun it off a little bit, just the Alaskans Road meetings. We want to make sure that group has a very distinct purpose. The purpose is to protect the rights of Alaskans.
This is
I don't want to deter that story, but I do want to highlight how awful these assembly and mayor and policies have put Anchorage in a really dire position. And that
I've known this since day one. Even Chief Dahl had this problem. There was that dog who was beaten to death, who was hung from a tree and was beaten by all those drug people in Palmer. And they just used him like a piñata. And I'm sure you guys know what a piñata is, but and that's
I'm not familiar with the story, unfortunately.
Well, you don't need to be. It's actually quite devastating. These people who were gangsters or drug dealers or whatever, they took their pit bull and hung it up from a tree and then started beating it like a piñata until it died. And because dogs are property here, they're not considered to be live beings. They got away with it. And a lot of people were really upset about how it happened. And so a lot of people started coming to assembly meetings a few years ago because of this. And it's very sad, and Chief Dahl, he was very upset about it. And he really he had his hands tied with SB 91 and everything else. And Butch Moore, like I said, if you look up Breeze Law, Brianna Moore was his daughter who was killed by her boyfriend, execution style, because he's a psycho. He's in prison now. But, it's one of those things that Butch actually came out, and even though he was working so hard on Breeze Law, he ended up coming and helping me with SB 91 because I was feeling so unsafe. My brother is prior military intelligence, and I called him crying, being like, I've had a gun pulled on me again. I don't know what to do. And so he actually has friends who are in the FBI and everything else, because I don't know what kind of work he does. He does some kind of spook work, and I never ask him because it's not my problem to know, he does some kind of government stuff. Yeah. But he, all of a sudden we had more FBI agents, when he called a buddy and was like, hey, my sister's freaking out and she can handle herself, but everybody else is freaking out too, and everybody was feeling that way. And so at least we got some of SB 91 turned around. But that's the big thing, is that we have to rein in these politicians. They have to understand that they work for us. That's it. You have a job as a civil servant. If you decide to take that job that pays crap ass in comparison to being an engineer, or in comparison to be a COO, or, you know, whatever, like being an attorney like Forrest Dunbar is, if you choose that job, then you need to focus on what your job is. And your job is to make sure that we're okay, not to charge us more money for everything. Where's all the marijuana tax going? We got those things like Walgreens on every corner now. Where the hell is the money? It's almost $1 million a month.
Yeah.
So I want to know where the money is, and why do you keep raising my property taxes? I don't have kids, but people are still being charged for their kids to go learn virtually at school.
Well,
With
you
a
know, it's going to
baby
come
sitter,
soon.
you
As
keep
you guys are going to have an increased unemployment tax coming soon too. Something that no one's talking about. That just hit Washington, just because there's so many people unemployed, and it's like no one's talking about these things. No one's discussing these new coming things coming 2021. There's being quiet, thinking the world's just, you know, going to get back to better. It's not going to be an overnight process to get back to our economic prosperity that we were facing prior to 2020. It's just not going to happen. And like, for anyone that thinks that that's going to be an overnight thing is just delusional. This is a fight that we have to do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but like you said, it's a smaller city, smaller problems. You know, real quick, I want to go back to Politadick. I want to get him in on this conversation a little bit, just regarding the. No, it's totally fine. This is what this whole thing's about, so I appreciate it. Let's touch a little bit base. I want to go back to this time period around this hotel purchase. I want to focus on the Golden Lion Hotel in particular. So that hotel, were you there during the meeting, during the purchase meeting? Did you go to it?
No, I was at that point we were doing a lot of primary running for candidates, and I was doing a lot of one-on-one interviews with legislators at that point.
I understand. So from what I understand, and from like Suzanne Downing's meeting, and from Craig Campbell's meeting, and from other people's meetings, this is the timeline that I've got, and like you've seen some of the fallout of this, so you can kind of give me an idea if it's pretty accurate.
I was in the middle of all of it, even if I wasn't there. So
yeah, there you go. So the timeline is like the purchase of the Golden Lion Hotel was presented, and then public testimony just rained in against it. Is that accurate?
Oh, that was accurate for every building that they had presented, not just the Golden Lion. I mean, but yeah, you're putting it into a heart of a community and say, hey, here you go. Sorry, neighbors, you got to live with what we're going to put in here. It's not zoned for it, but we're going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
No input from the public saying, oh, yeah, we heard from the public. We had all of these meetings, they claimed. But if you look at kind of like the meeting that's going on here tomorrow with the business owners in Anchorage with acting Mayor Quinn Davidson, about maybe reopening, rethinking this closure plan that they got going on. Why are they kicking out Jamie Allard and telling her not to show up to this meeting?
Really good question.
They don't want to hear from us. They don't want to hear from the people that they're impacting. They want to hear from the yes people, the ones that are saying, this is what you do. This is what we're going to tell you to do. You do it. And we see that a lot on all levels, whether it be in Anchorage, which is, in my opinion, has been dying for a long time. It has been dying before Mayor Berkowitz took hold of it. He just accelerated the program. He kept trying to give us more police officers will fix the problem. But as was just pointed out by Noria there, you got SB 91 was into play. It didn't matter how many officers you had on out there rearresting the exact same people day after day after day, being released the same day they're caught. Till they were arraigned in court and actually given a sentence, they're just thrown right back out on the streets on good reconnaissance until they killed someone.
Well, if they even showed up to court.
Yeah, exactly. They more often than not, they have their bench warrants out for them. Then you got HB 49 that they passed there. And HB 49 was, in my opinion, it was a much better than SB 91, but it was still a Band-Aid. They didn't do nothing to readdress recidivism. When these people go right back out on the street, they don't have nothing. They still have nothing. They went in with nothing. They're going back out with nothing. What are they going back to? The exact same thing that they started out with when they got thrown in jail the first time.
Well, and that's just it. Like I was telling my mama and my brother and everybody else, it's like a Band-Aid on an amputation.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to work. I mean, it does enough, because it used to be that drugs were, and Butch Moore pointed this out to me because both of us had read SB 91. It was in any amount if it was for personal use. So you could have bricks of, I don't know if they come in bricks or not, but heroin, cocaine, whatever. You could have bricks of things. And as long as it wasn't personalized packaged, you could have the whole thing in your car. So what then? You just say it's for personal use? Any amount? Why do you need a whole log of cocaine? Or I don't know what they call them, but you know what I'm saying? That's absolutely out of control.
Yeah. And like, it's great that you guys are talking about this behind the scenes, because I got this this little thing scrolling across the screen. This guy wrote this. He was the former city attorney in Seattle. He wrote this statement, and people can go back and watch it. But there's links on Is Anchorage Dying on Facebook to find this. It's just the intro, video 1 intro, and it literally talks. He wrote this in 1993, warning people of Seattle that this was going to happen. That Seattle was going to die, and how it was going to die, and that like all these little things kept creeping up, and that they just ignored it, and they kept ignoring it until eventually the problems were so big, they can't fix them.
Well, and that's what happened in Arizona. My boyfriend didn't like how I started calling people up here junkies, but I know what a junkie looks like. I grew up in Southern Arizona. I grew up in a town that the youngest girl that my mom delivered her baby, she got pregnant when she was 11. She had her baby when she was 12. You know, like I grew up in a city riddled with alcoholism, with drug addiction, you know, with teenage pregnancy, none of the fun stuff. We're not winning at anything, you know, and it's just one of those things that like, I already know when I see it, you know, same thing with Berkowitz, same thing with Walker. Same thing with the drug addiction problem here. Everybody was like, oh, it's fine. Like, no, they're not junkies. They just have this problem. Okay, well, I don't know why you want to cook stuff in your bathtub as opposed to just, I don't know, be normal, but sure, whatever.
Well, here's a question for both of you guys. How do you guys calculate a dying city? What do you look at? Do you look at business closures? Because Anchorage has that. Do you look at homeless? Because they have that. Do you look at crime? Because they have that. I'm wondering what is the definition of a dying city? How do you define a dying city? Because back in 1993, that former city attorney, that video I showed you, and I highlight this because I want people to go watch these videos. I actually got a bunch of feedback saying that the videos were too negative around Christmas time, and I said, sorry.
Grow up.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate, but the reality is that people have to realize that this is happening in your city right now.
I mean, we've seen it going on here in Alaska since about 1989 and 1988 when they started to do the Reformation Acts and the reforms in our school districts and the way our education was being delivered. And by 1992, we pretty much the reforms got passed. The diversity got its foothold into our school systems. It was more important for people to be having the children's butts sitting in the seats than it was giving them an education. And we watch it progressively go worse from there. And then here in Alaska, I gauge it on where's the businesses going, where are people moving to, where are they living at. Anchorage has some of the poorest working school systems that we have here in the state of Alaska, and that's not saying very much for them when you're ranking 50% on across the board when you're talking just scholastic testings out there. Then you look at since Berkowitz has been in the office, he has tripled the homeless population out there. Say
that one more time.
Berkowitz in his 6 years has tripled the homeless population living in Anchorage.
Well, how do you come up with that calculation?
Well, there was roughly about 400 or 500 people 6 years ago, and we're sitting at 1,200 plus right now and growing rapidly thanks to COVID. So many people are no longer have places to live.
Would you also say that maybe the amount of money we spend on homeless has also gone up pretty dramatically?
It's far outpaced what the homeless population is.
Okay. I mean, like you could comfortably most likely live as an individual person on the amount of money that the city spends per homeless person. Am I accurate on that?
Yep.
Oh yes, and still have money being put away into the bank. Hey, here's your $2,000 allotment, and that $2,000 allotment's going to be a card that you can go and use and buy your food with, and your rent and electricity is paid for. If you want anything else, you have to go out there and figure out how to pay for it yourself. But your housing, your lights, your housing, and everything else is all paid for, and here's your food. The rest is up to you. And they would still come out well ahead. I mean, tell me how many people couldn't live out there for $2,000 a month and don't have to work to get it.
Not many.
You can rent a place and eat like kings and queens.
Yeah. Well, and Berkowitz wanted this to be a sanctuary city. That's one of the biggest problems. How the hell are you going to even get enough people up here to be a sanctuary city? In Arizona, sure, you just jump the border. But here, I mean, what are you going to do? Put them on boats? Like, come on, man. Like, this it's totally out of control. He got totally out of control with everything. Like you said, it's gone up exponentially. And when I moved here, and I moved here from Tucson, Arizona, which has a very high homeless rate. They even have their own homeless court. They have they let them take over like softball fields where kids are supposed to play softball, and they have like tent cities or whatever. And when I moved up here, I was like, how the hell, why would you want to be homeless here? I mean,
I asked the same question. I asked the same question. I've always wondered that. And I lived in Alaska. I've always wondered how would you why wouldn't you just try everything in your power to get out of Alaska to be homeless? Because being homeless down in Seattle is easy, being homeless. And I mean, they don't even care. They literally don't care at all. They
for a plane ticket, you could just go to Hawaii. You could go live down there and be homeless. It'd be a lot nicer. You got a beach.
Oregon,
you could hunt wild boars.
Portland, they love homeless people there. They have no problem homeless in Portland. So
that
why not
just
go there?
It's
that warm. They give
thing
you money,
where you can do heroin and cocaine.
Really
like both of them are legal now.
Yeah, it just seems weird that but it's almost like human depravity in a lot of ways. And hear me out real quick on this. Yeah. If the city is willing to spend as much money as they are on homeless, and yet all these people that refusing treatment, maybe spend that money and maybe take and work with maybe work with Oregon or Washington that's a little bit more structured for these type of people, and maybe pay them to take these people and get them help. Maybe that might be better, because letting them be out in the cold is almost inhumane in almost every way.
It really is.
You know what I mean? So maybe their methodology, maybe they're spending way too much money per person, and maybe they should be isolating that and sending that out of state and letting the other states, obviously, they obviously don't know how to do anything. So just send them some more problems, you know what I mean? So it's my idea, because I don't see Anchorage fixing this. Policy. I'm sorry?
Well, Alaska as a whole needs to adopt its rural policies that it has. They take the what they classify the undesirables. They buy them a one-way ticket to Anchorage or Fairbanks. They drop them off there. They tell them, you are no longer welcome back in our community. We don't want to see you back here again. Figure out how to make your life where you are now.
Yeah, that sounds like a really bad policy. It sounds like something that would cause a lot of problems.
Well, and that's the biggest problem. I was talking to my mother about this earlier. If my brother had a cocaine addiction or a heroin addiction or something like that, guess what? He gets locked in a closet till he gets over it. I'll bring him up to Alaska from Arizona and handle it. He is not going to be able to be just set free with a bunch of crazy people who just let him act however he wants. Yeah. And the problem is these villages aren't taking care of their people. Don't tell me you're a community when you kick somebody out when you only have 500 people. And then it's just, you're somebody else's problem now. No, lock them in a closet, tie them up, and let them get through it. You know what I mean? Figure it out. Because I've heard that Monarch or whatever that vodka is that's in a plastic bottle goes for $100 up there. $100 for a plastic bottle of vodka? That's crazy talk.
Yeah. So Carrie over here on Facebook said that she said we should just, when I talk, I'm not speaking for Alaskans Road meetings. That's why this meeting is different than the other ones. This one is purely my commentary and my ability to speak how I want. And, that's kind of the point. So Carrie wrote that, why don't we send them to California, because they have no sanctuary and higher drug sentences. So it's like, yeah, that sounds like a really, really good plan. You know,
I
pay
will help pay for
California.
the plane tickets.
There you go.
Let's start
Like,
sending them off. If California
could,
wants
like,
to help everybody, then
so
let them go.
You could save Anchorage millions of dollars by doing that, by partnering. And it's not a bad thing. You're actually, it's more humane to do it this way, primarily because you will now be able to put these people in a position to where they won't die from cold. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
they're not frozen to death. Could you imagine that kind of death?
No, I could not.
I mean,
that would be like
terrible.
I'll give you a great example. This happened in Alaska to someone that I knew. He was ex-military, and this is a great example of someone that you would not traditionally see as homeless. He was an ex-major in the military, in the Air Force, but he had a major alcohol issue, and he became so incoherent that he would have to go to the hospital regularly because of his alcohol issues. And so he got loose from custody because he was an adult, and so they couldn't do anything for him. And he was walking down the road, and you think this guy's a major, retired, etc. And you know, he fell or something, drunk, and he was in the cold, and like he ended up like having like amputation issues because he was out in the cold, and the state trooper didn't find him until much later. So he ended up having to have things amputated because he was drunk and out in the cold. It's like, I mean, I'm sure that story is not exclusive.
Well, that's a whole nother issue, is that we don't deal with our veterans the way that we should. When I worked at Boeing, I was heading up the Wounded Warrior Project. Like, it was a very big deal for me. My brother being in the military and my being a helicopter pilot and aircraft mechanic, it's very sad. You know, and Arizona had that problem where they got in trouble because they had all those suicides.
Yeah.
From veterans, you know, and like even my brother, even though I feel like he came back mostly normal, you're still changed when you see crazy things, you know, when you're just trying to survive. He's been left on an Iraqi army base twice because he didn't have a convoy that he was with. He would just hop on different things and then go interrogate people in different places or whatever he does. And so, you know, so he got stuck there. You think that Iraqi army guys like us? No, they don't at all. So my brother's sitting there, you know, in a corner with his gun, hoping that somebody's going to come back for him.
Yeah.
You know, it's very sad. It's very, very sad how we treat our veterans, and we really need to do a better job at that. And we need to do a better job with the Native community as well. Yeah. And I hate to say this, but alcohol is a white man's drug. You know, like being from Arizona, they can smoke peyote and they're totally fine, but they cannot drink at all, which is why they have dry reservations.
Yeah. You know, well, you know, and ultimately discussing the Native, you know, I think that is, you know, you almost have to pull yourself away from Alaska politics, and you have to pull yourself away from Alaska media, and you have to pull yourself away from the unions, and you have to pull yourself away from all these interconnected special interests that are in Alaska. And the only way you can ever communicate clearly about Native corporations or about issues that revolve around these kinds of their management strategies around these areas, because if anybody is to blame, is the Native corporations, and primarily because they have the money to fix the problem.
Yep, free money is always free 99. It's free 53. It doesn't matter, because when you don't have to earn your money, and it's the same thing in Arizona. Those kids, when they turn 18 on the Native reservations in Arizona, they get a $20,000 check because they have casinos on them. But it's a dry reservation, but they don't have to drive that far to go get alcohol.
One thing I know, I grew up in Native area as well, and in Oklahoma, Texas area, and so there they have reservations, and there's a lot more different. And here in Washington, they also have reservations, and they have Indian management and things like that, and casinos. And so there's pretty good similarities between Oklahoma and Washington and Alaska in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of differences in the way that it's managed. You know, one great example in Alaska, they have a specific constitutional thing that has to do with budgetary items. And Noria, you're probably not aware of this, but it will answer a lot of your questions regarding why isn't certain taxes being pushed to certain things. Well, like a great example is like down in Oklahoma, the casinos are required to give 3% of their total revenue to the local school systems, which makes total sense. But Alaska doing that kind of designation is actually against the Constitution. You can't designate funds for that. It's not it's not an option. And like, so it's tough to kind of coordinate or look at these states as the same, because the way Alaska manages is very unique. They have a very different structure, even though they have the native corporations, which is even more, it's very different in that structure too. But I've never seen native companies so well organized in my life.
Well,
and the ones that are in Alaska, they're so well organized.
People. They're certainly not stupid people in any way.
No,
they're
not by any stretch. The Bering Straits Native Corporation and Cook Inlet, and all these guys are really well-funded, well-organized places. Yes.
But that's the problem, is that the people who are working there, they're well organized, but they're not organizing their communities the way they should.
You're right.
I guess that my opinion of it is not that I don't think that we should take away from people. I don't think we should steal land from people. I certainly don't agree with, like, Christopher Columbus can suck it. I don't like him at all, but I think that it's one of those things that, I guess for me, it's more of a familial thing, because I'm Algerian and Italian, which is why I'm probably so loud spoken. And thankfully I was born in America, because I'm pretty sure I would have not lasted in Algeria. But, it's one of those things that you just take care of your family, mi familia, you take care of your own. And that's all that you can do. Like, you try to help them however you can. You don't just ship them off and let them die in the snow. Like, that's not the right way to be.
I agree with you. And I think dropping them off in Anchorage and being like, well, you can't come back home, so just deal with it. That's not really an option, and that's not really going to solve any problems. So I think Politadick brought that up. So I think you make a great point. You really do.
It's very hurtful. I couldn't imagine my family turning me off like that and just being like, sorry, bye, don't care about you anymore. You're gone. Like, you're dead to me.
So
don't care if you
Angus wants to know what villages actually do that. What villages drop people off? Because I'm not the one that, I don't know. But can you tell what villages do that? Do you know of any particular ones, or are you pretty confident that this practice actually exists?
Although I'm very, very confident the practice exists, and no, I'm not willing to name any of the villages that are out there. I'm going to plead the fifth, because that is one area that I know if I open up a can of worms and say any of their names out there, I will see a backlash storm that there will be no end to.
Okay, but what you're saying is that they do it. You're not willing to come out and say who they are.
I won't say who the villages are. I mean, they're not all of the villages, but most of them will. The smaller the population, the more likelihood that if they are into drugs, or they're trying to deal drugs, or they're a chronic abusive alcoholic, they will find a way to give them a one-way ticket back out of the village so they don't come back again. And it happens one too often. I mean, we had several of them that made the news media last year.
It's difficult to have conversations like this. It really is. Just like the videos I put out are really, they're hard to watch. They really are. And like when I watched the most recent, and there's 3 series. There's Seattle's Dying, there's 3 cities, and then there's the most recent one. And it's all done by Como News in Seattle. And I highly recommend everyone from Alaska watching them. They're very long. There's like little snippet clips on the Facebook is Anchorage Dying, and you can watch some of the small clips there. But the main films are on YouTube, and it's Como, Komo News, and you'll be able to find them. Is Seattle Dying, or Seattle is Dying is what they call it. And so what led us to this is Anchorage Dying is that question. It's posed question. We want to know what people's opinion is. Like, what are the problems that are causing Anchorage to be where they are today? I know that some of the problems are not going to be fun to talk about. I know people's opinions are not going to be fun to listen to. But the reality is that that's freedom of speech. And the people that we have on our platform are informational. They are journalistic. They are leaders. They're business-minded individuals. These people have influence. They have the time. They put in the effort. I believe that we owe them the respect to listen and hear them out and listen to like the ground and what's going on a day-to-day basis. Because that's what I really would love to get is the citizens, out there communicating, out there speaking their minds. Let me give you guys an example. First time in my entire life, I actually had a business owner call me from Alaska that I used to work with and tell me that he's closing his business. I've been doing marketing a long time, been a business banker and other things prior to that, and I've never ever had that happen to me. And like it was really sad because it didn't have to happen. And then when I tried to introduce him to the Alaskan Throat meetings, he snubbed me and told me that, you know, he's just done. He's done with the city. He's done with the state. He's done with, he just feels so left out. It feels like he was just completely left out to dry. And like none of these mandates or things were communicated clearly to them. And like, you can't expect small business to survive in these kind of environments, you know, and like, I just can't keep hearing things like that happen. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with people like that calling me and telling me stories like that and me not do anything about it. I just refuse.
Well, and I think that that's a really valid aspect. You know, my boyfriend and I, we got into it earlier. We were fighting about it, which we don't, I mean, we fight, or we bicker, I should say. We don't like fight for a long time or anything. We usually get over stuff pretty quickly, but you know, I'm like, how do you not care more about Alaska? I'm like, your dad owned a business in Delta Junction. You know, your parents still live up there. You have Alaska tattooed over your heart. Like, I don't have any tattoos, but yet I'm sitting here fighting for the state, and I'm on all these Zoom calls and everything else. And it's one of those things that people have to stand up with the same pride that they have as being an Alaskan that they do to these assembly members, especially because they're the ones who are making all the choices for us. And then, you
spending
know,
millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. I'm going to pull a Donald Trump. Millions and millions and millions of dollars.
I know, and everybody got all upset about Donald Trump. I wish that he would grab me by the lady bits. I would be happy. I love Donald Trump, and maybe just being an aircraft mechanic, I have a very coarse mouth, but I don't find offense to anything because I don't have time to be offended by stuff. I have stuff to do every day. Like, you know.
But, you know, just talking about the millions of dollars that the city's spending. They're spending so much money all the time.
They spend all that money on flowers. They had that whole assembly meeting where people brought flowers so we could have flowers for downtown. This is way before COVID. This is a couple years ago. But I'm like, are you serious? And then they had $110,000 where they couldn't figure out how to spend that money. And instead of using it on backlodged, backdated like rape kits and things like that, or child molestation kits, like the DNA kits, they ended up using it to rewrap fire trucks. I don't need breast cancer awareness.
Oh yeah, I remember pink fire trucks.
I already have boobs, so I already know. I don't need you to remind me.
One of the things that in regards to like on that side of things, when you're looking at just mismanagement of funds, you know, so here's a great example. We'll tie it right back. $20 or $9 million purchase on the Golden Lion Hotel. Do you know what money do you know where that money came from?
No.
Oh, well, so yeah, it started out from the CARES Act fund is where they were pulling that money from. Then because of all of the backlash that they were getting, they kind of shifted it around to go to, I believe, the fire department and police department as their overtime dealing with all of the COVID, and used their funding and pulled it over to pay for the actual building. So that way,
yeah. Do you know where their funding came from, though? You guys are gonna love this.
Well, that's just horse.
So yeah, the Municipal Light and Power. Yeah, they sold their interest in that, and then they used that money to buy a hotel that's now going to cost them money forever. So they sold two income producing things. They sold one, the Municipal Light and Power, which is like incredibly valuable item, business, and incredibly long lasting thing that's now permanently not in the hands of the muni. And then you had a hotel which paid an incredible amount of money in property taxes, not to mention head tax and everything else. So it was a really, really bad decision, in my opinion.
Well, they don't care though, because they're liberals, and that's the problem, is that if you don't have to earn money yourself, it doesn't mean anything. When I was a kid, I used to get paid a nickel or a dime, depending on how many dishes I had to put into the dishwasher after I'd already cleaned them off. My brother did the same thing with mowing the lawn. My mom's a doctor. She's a multimillionaire. And you know what my mama told me? And it was probably the best advice I've ever been given, ever. I asked her one day, because I used to like walk home from high school and everything, because we lived close enough. And like I would jog there in the morning and everything else. And I went to college when I was in high school, all this different stuff. And I didn't understand. Like, I asked this one lady one time because she owned a Mexican restaurant. Her daughter was on the cheerleading team with me. And I was like, Miss Tapia, I was like, I wish that my mom had enough money to buy a nice car like this. And she's like, your mom has way more money than we do. And I was like, I don't think so. And I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, we're rich. And she's like, no, I'm rich. You're poor. You don't have a job. And that was it, you know? Like, that was the end of the story. She didn't care because it was her money. My mom earned her education. She earned her lifestyle. She did whatever she wanted to do, and she still does. And I've told her to this point, spend all the money. Just spend it. I don't care about it because it's not my money. I make my own money. I figure out my own way in life, you know?
That's a great way to be. And that, you know, so it leads us right, you know, like right into the whole, you know, governmental reach now with the stimulus and
that's the problem.
All this other stuff, you know. Yeah.
Well, it started with Carter. It started especially hard with Carter. You know, it was, and it broke up Black families. It broke up a lot of families. And it was always like, well, I get a free handout, you know, if I kick his ass out of the house, and then he has to pay child support and everything else. And I'll tell you what, and this may sound terribly wrong to people, but I am not necessarily about women's rights. Women have had rights the whole time. I don't know why everybody's complaining about
and that's the thing that you and I, Politadick and I aren't going to have any conversation or comment on because we're not women.
I know, because you guys don't want to get in trouble. But I could say whatever I want because I got the boobs in this conversation.
Yeah, there you go. And it's great. You know, that I love unbridled conversation. That's my favorite. And so whenever you're able to have a conversation that isn't restricted or limited based upon the narrative, you know, and that's really cool. So
pretty much all my conversations, I totally think that the Army and the military in general should be segregated. My brother says that in the military, you know, he wouldn't have chosen a woman over a man, but I don't believe him because I call him crying, and next thing you know, there's more FBI agents up here. So I don't believe that.
Yeah. So Noria, let's touch a little bit based on the safety aspect, since you did touch on that. I want to ask you, I want to get you and Politadick's opinion of the safety and how, in the time that, you know, Mayor Berkowitz was in office for what, 6 years, you said, Politadick? And I'm sorry, I don't even, you have your name up there. I'm sorry. What's your first name, sir?
Bert.
All right, Bert. So,
and you'll have to forgive me. What's your first name?
My name is Philip.
Philip. Okay.
Yep. And so let's, I just want to touch base on that, on the mayor. He was in office for 6 years. And in that time, do you guys feel that Anchorage became more safe or less safe?
Definitely less safe.
Like a lot, like a completely different city.
You were told by the mayor, don't go out after midnight and don't go leave your house until 5 a.m. in the morning because you're not safe.
Well, and what the hell is that? I work at a restaurant. Am I supposed to not get off work after midnight? I mean, come on.
That's what the mayor told us all too.
And Noria, you said you were robbed by gunpoint?
Well, no, because I had my gun on me. So luckily, I asked the kid if he wanted to do an OK Corral in the middle of the street, and he chose no. So
but he threatened to pull a gun on you or something?
Yeah. Pulled out mine first, and he was about to pull. Oh, I thought he was about to pull his out. I don't know if he had one or not, but the girls who were with him, because they didn't see me. We have 3 vehicles, and one of them is a Subaru, and so he didn't see me sitting in there warming it up, and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. But I shouldn't have to be afraid to go out and like leave my car running or that's one of the biggest problems with this city is that, or with this state, they really need to adopt, instead of the stand my ground law, they need to have the make my day law. Arizona went to that and crime went down a lot. So if somebody comes into your property and they're just trying to steal something, you can shoot them in the face just for trying to steal a trailer.
Yeah.
It changed a lot of stuff. I'm telling you, because we used to have to stay on my ground. It used to be when I had my house when I was like 21 in Arizona, if somebody came in and raped me, if they were walking away from me after that, I couldn't shoot them in the back. Well, I'm pretty sure that after you violated me, I can do whatever I want. But no, it was not legal then. They changed that, and then all of a sudden criminals started getting their shit about them. Stuff about them.
Yeah, so you got a lot of comments going on. I'm glad I did the Is Anchorage Dying? It's definitely got some comments going, man. So we're doing our job.
Entice some people. Sorry, people. I know that I'm not the easiest.
It's okay. No, that's the point of this. You know, like this isn't Alaskans Wrote Meetings. We're talking about Anchorage. We're talking about issues that are going on in Anchorage. We want to talk about the things that are real issues. We want to hear what people's like real opinions are. I know most people are terrified, Noria.
Well, what do you guys think about the solar powered bathrooms
something that's okay?
To put in this next season?
Go ahead, Politadick, Bert. What were you saying?
Well, are everybody in Anchorage is all excited about the new solar powered bathrooms that they're going to put in for the homeless around Anchorage? You saw that's in their budget.
That'll cost me more money in property taxes.
Yeah, that's coming out soon to theater near you. They started the CARES Act money. They started the birch cleanup or the beetle kill in Centennial Park today. They started cutting down the trees. There's multi-millions going down the drain to keep 12 people employed. The wastefulness of watching what they've done there in Anchorage is just astounding. They got one socialistic program after another that's designed to do a 5% return. Yeah. Their hotels is going to get a 5% return for how many people they get off of the streets for it.
I would say a 3% return if we're lucky. The only good thing is people having jobs. The crazy thing is we pay probably I think it's almost $5,000 a month or $5,000 a year, in property taxes. I have no kids. So I'm paying for schools that I don't have any kids in. And then
not to mention you're paying incredibly high property taxes too. I mean, those are like,
they're absolutely
your rates high.
And they keep raising them because they have all these closed meetings. So then they just do whatever they want. Yeah. And like I said, where's the marijuana?
There you go. You just brought it back home. You know what I mean? Like in a lot of ways, like we're talking about Alaskans throat meetings and like in a obscure way, but the reality is like because of that we are here today. You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly it. And Frank was very great in starting this, and starting this momentum. I appreciate Mr. McCreary for actually handling this, and it's a good thing. The lady who does my eyebrows, she was telling me that she pays $1,200 a month per kid for her two kids, to go to school and to learn on the virtual thing because they don't have computers at home. And they have pretty much a babysitter there. So you're at the school that I already pay for and the computers that I've already paid for, but yet you have no teacher. What the hell is going on? And why am I paying property taxes right now? Nobody's paying attention to our streets or anything. Or when they do it, it's at like 4:30 in the morning. Thanks for waking me up. Now I'm up and grumpy. I'm a grumpy old man. Yeah. Not cool. Yeah. They got to stop this stuff. This is completely out of control. Yeah. And that's their problem, is that they just don't care and that they're being able to get away from it. They're able to just do whatever they want, whenever they want, and it's supposed to be fine by us.
Yeah,
Alaskans are too nice to say anything. But my answer is, listen here, dirtbag. The answer is no. Stop spending my money.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is like there should be accountability to the property owners, the people that are you're taking their money and you're using it for your projects and your city management and other things. It's like I owned a house in Anchorage, so there's a comment named from Angus on Is Anchorage Dying? Yeah, I do live out of state, but I have had paid property taxes in Anchorage, and I lived there for many years. So but I also didn't have kids. So I was in Noria's position where I was paying property taxes and he wasn't getting anything in return. And so I would say that I wasn't getting anything in return anyway, because the education system in Anchorage isn't very good in a lot of ways. It could be a lot better, is a better way to put it. So Politadick, tell me a little bit about that, since we're moving into the Noria. I'd love to hear your opinion too. Moving a little bit further away from the hotel purchase and the Ethan Berkowitz and his butt picture and I don't even know. I can't even keep up with this stuff. I wrote a thing is like, Ethan Berkowitz quit back in July. So the fact that he ended up resigning was just like foreshadowing. I was really happy. And then I wrote a thing about Jenny Durkin, the mayor of Seattle, quitting, and she's also not going to run again. So I was like, yay. So I just got to keep that going. Just keep making posts about people. Maybe they'll all quit. But the reality is that there's a major problem in the assembly, major problem in the mayor. So
Well,
there was
Berkowitz
a
was a sissy anyway. If I would have taken a picture of my face and just of my tush and nobody could have seen my face, then why would you even turn yourself in? That's like being like, hey, I robbed this bank. I just wanted to let you know it was me, even though I was wearing a mask. That's stupid.
Yeah.
That's just stupid. That's what a sissy does. And I'm tired of all these people being sissies. Because I wasn't raised to be that way. You don't cry about stuff if it's not important. You know, you don't, I don't know. And yes, I'm a very dramatic person, but.
Well, let's just touch base on that area. So the assembly decided that they weren't going to do a special election. Why?
Because they don't want to have it. They get to choose whatever they want, which is exactly why they've done.
I thought it was per the charter that they had to do it.
They know if they give a special election right now, they won't be in office again. They will watch their power completely go down the drain because the one person that has the veto power is not going to be someone they want in control.
Oh, no.
That's why Forrest didn't run. That's why he didn't end up being the mayor.
We can't have that. We can't let the liberal left lose their control of the assembly, can we? No.
Yes, please.
No, because we can't do that. So yeah, that's what it looks like.
There.
That's how it sounds like. That's what it looks like. You know, I've stood in front of them for Platinum Jacks. I was their banker, and I was also the LED Ultra Lounge banker many years ago. And I had to do the license transfer process between Platinum Jacks to LED. And I went down there and spoke on record for that transfer to the assembly. So I was pretty comfortable having, I've seen many of them, and I don't like very many of them. And I don't think very many of them are very quality people. And personally, it's going to be my objective to make sure that all of them lose their positions.
Oh,
most
Forrest
of them. I think like Jamie
Allard,
Allard, and like I think there's one other Eagle River one that's pretty decent, but most of them I'm not a big fan of. I think they've done a really bad job as assembly members. And personally, I've said here on camera, they should just quit and move on. My opinion.
Well, if it was my choice, we'd lock them up and beat them until they were, smarter. But unfortunately,
well, they said tar and feather back in the day. That's what my spouse says, tar and feather.
Right? Exactly.
But we'll be nice. We'll just let them quit. If they just quit and move on, that'd be great.
Well, Dyson was actually the one who brought up the $110,000, and that's when Dembowski was still on there. So at the time, they only had 2 Republicans on the assembly, and that was a couple years ago. And then Dembowski left to be chief of staff for Governor Dunleavy, which I met multiple times. He's a great guy. I like him a lot. He is tall as the Dickens, that's for sure. But anyway, so it's interesting because, the only woman I think, or the only person I think that's a Republican is the gal from Eagle River.
Yeah, Jamie Allard. Yeah, she's fantastic. You know what I mean? I love listening to her.
She's pretty good.
I think the fact that she stands up to the assembly is just something we absolutely need. We need more people like her.
Absolutely. Well, and it's one of those things that like Rivera and Constance, they're always on their phones. And I'm like, if you don't put down your phone and pay attention to me, I swear to sweet Jesus, you will have a broken phone in about 2 seconds.
I didn't say it. You said it. I didn't say that.
Well, you don't have to say anything, honey. I just say whatever I want.
I know. That's
my boyfriend knows that. Nobody comes to my house and has dinner and plays on their phone. It's rude.
I can't even imagine what those meetings are like with you going up there and talking to them. I'm sure they love you. I'm sure they love you.
Straight up, I told you, I pointed at Forrest Dunbar and I was like, hey, you will never be mayor as long as I'm in this city. And I meant it.
That's amazing.
Well, because,
we have another meeting going on tomorrow night.
Well, that's
another assembly.
Is there going to be
assembly meeting going on? I think we need to watch everybody that goes in there and testify. Needs to name off all of those businesses that have special sandwiches named after the assembly members. And I would like to watch the assembly have every single person inside of that room arrested one by one as they get handcuffed and taken out of the room just for naming the sandwiches that have been named after them in their honors.
Bert, why are you trying to give me now I have to go to prison or something?
Hey,
come on, man.
I'm not mad. Honestly, I was really shocked that they already arrested one guy just for getting upset, and like he has every right to be upset. Everyone has the right to be upset. Everyone can speak their minds and get mad. You don't like, I can't imagine like anyone arresting someone for that kind of
It's
thing.
your First Amendment. You don't have the right to take that away from me.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Well, they've tried to do it with, his name is Bruce, the guy who's the head of security, and he has a gun and everything. I talked to him outside the last time I was there, and I was like, Bruce, please try not to shoot me, because I always tell him, like, don't you come after me. Don't touch me. You know this is going to go bad. And he's always like, he's like, I don't want to have to touch you, but you have to sit down. I'm like, or do I?
Yeah,
And then
actually,
I talk outside. I
got some, like, look what I found. Oh,
that's off of my video feed there.
I took that from your video. Look at that. You guys remember him? Oh, now he's in the car.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think everyone should actually see that.
And if you go back to the guy laying there on the ground, that was who was arrested at the last meeting.
That's Darden?
That's nothing else.
Oh, that's the guy who wears the thing over his head, right? The box over his head.
Yeah.
He's the one
to
that was
be
always
clear,
out there, right?
That's Ethan Berkowitz. That's Ethan Berkowitz on the, like, I think this is one of the last public. I think this was whenever he had already locked out the public. Am I right?
Yes, we were all locked outside. He wouldn't let us in. Everybody that was there, they were banging on the doors, protesting against him. This is the same night that both Bronson and Robbins came out earlier during that day to announce their candidacy running for mayor. And so this is later on in the evening. There was maybe 50 people left over about this point at that time at night. And this is midnight when he's coming out walking there right now. And
he hid inside for a really long time, hoping everybody would go home, huh?
He did. He even had a vehicle set up at the back door. His special chauffeur, that's where they had snuck him into the meeting. That's how he got in there without anybody seeing him at the beginning of it. But we were a lot.
So does that look very transparent to you?
What's that?
Does that look very, very transparent? Does that whole situation come off very transparent? Like this, that whole situation.
Well, let's put it this way. We're going to sign in new ordinances that are going to take your rights away from being able to say how your kids are to be raised. We can now have them taken out of your home if they say that you are disparaging against them. Here's the homeless shelters that we're purchasing at the time. And this is also when they were working on changing the laws for our police department and how they handle the defund the police. This is all behind
I have a question for you guys. Would you guys consider taking a naked photo of your backside as mayor in the mayor's bathroom a judgment lapse? Would you guys consider that a judgment lapse at the very minimum? I
wouldn't take a naked picture of my backside from my boyfriend.
Yeah, I know. So I'm curious. Would you guys consider that a judgment lapse?
Well, here's the thing, though. Why would you even admit to it when you can't see your face? Like I said, he's just a sissy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious. How if he's sending it to his wife, that's between him and his wife. But when you're sending it to the mistress, that's a completely different story. That's more than a judgment lapse. You didn't have a brain in your head to begin with.
Well, I don't think many people saw this photo.
Your mistress is a journalist. He's just a giant sissy. That's his whole problem. It's always been his whole problem.
Well, look at him. He's hiding in a car, Noria.
I know. That's why my boyfriend wouldn't let me. We went and did the suicide run a couple years ago, and he was up there, and I was like, I swear to sweet Jesus, I'm going to run up there and just punch him in the face. And Brian's like, no. He's like, you just stay right here. And I'm like,
so in this circumstance, he came out, Politadick is saying they locked down the assembly. They stayed inside the assembly until way late, till after all the people could go home. Some of them could go home, and then he made a dash outside the door to try to get away from everybody. And these guys confronted him, and then he decided, oh, here's her and him talking right there. And then that's like, well, let's go back to the car. And there they are.
So they were trying to make it through the parking lot. His goal was to make it to his getaway vehicle that was parked at the back door. Because there was a good 20 people standing at the back door and about 20 people or so standing at the front door, he couldn't make it to the back door, which is where I was standing at the time. when he decided to come out. And then we had our own little radio grapevine, so to speak, going on there. And I heard word he was walking out the front door with his entourage of the security guards surrounding him and all of the other assembly members. Now, mind you, not a single assembly member there or any of the security guards were confronted, accosted, touched, messed with, not a thing with them. They had nothing said to them. Everything was directed directly towards Mayor Berkowitz, letting him know how heartwarmingly we loved him in our city. And
I got one more for you guys. I think you guys will like this one. I got one more for you.
That's a good one.
I think Shrek's rear end might be closer.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave that up for a minute just so everybody can see it. I figured that people might like that a little bit. I can't say as a mayor that was a very good judgment call. And my question here is it wasn't a very good judgment call. And the reason why I ask that is because whenever people are making bad judgment decisions, it's not exclusive to one decision. It's normally a very wide range of decisions that they're making bad decisions on. So hypothetically speaking, Mr. Berkowitz had his judgment called into question because of some very poor decision-making as a mayor. You could technically call into question all of his decision-making. And for how long has his decision-making could be technically called into question would be the big question at this point.
Since he's been in office.
Even becoming mayor.
Yep.
He was already bought and paid for before he even became mayor. You look at his special projects that he had coming out, the hotel revitalization of downtown. These plans were in the works long before he ever became mayor. And I'm meaning not as in these developers were talking to the previous mayor to get these things done. No, they were talking to him directly as one business person to another behind the scenes, getting the revitalization of what he called revitalizing downtown. I'm sure you may have caught the videos I made yesterday of the Midtown Mall and the ghost town that it was in the inside of it. Normally at this time of the year would have been elbow to elbow. Did a drive around downtown for about 5 minutes or so, just showing where's your parking spot. Pick your parking spot. There's one. There's one. There's one. Here's all these places you can pull right on into and go shopping 5 days before Christmas. I can't ever remember living in Alaska, going downtown at Christmas time and being able to have my pick of on-street parking. To give you how bad it really is down there, Fifth Avenue parking garage, drove into it. I was able to drive straight up to the Sky Bridge platform and get front row parking. That's how bad it was. And the entire Sky Bridge parking, that floor there, was not full. So
that's sorry, go
ahead. Yeah,
well, I was just going to say that's what Berkowitz has been planning.
I'm just messaging someone real quick. Give me 1 second.
What was that you said, Nora?
That's one of the things that Berkowitz has been planning. And you know that he owns multiple restaurants in town. And guess what? The only ones that came in over those stupid text messages from the APD about the COVID thing, none of them include any of the restaurants that he owns. They included everywhere else. Of course not, because he's not going to make money that way. So he was trying to shut down everybody else downtown. But the problem is that when he shut everybody else down, he also shut himself down because he's an idiot. I don't know.
Yeah, I had to ban somebody.
I
don't know what people's problem is. If you're going to come to these platforms, you come enjoy it because, the whole we're talking about Alaskans, we're talking about Anchorage, we're talking about solving issues, we're talking about fixing problems. I'm tired of getting these stupid messages about favoritism or just dumb comments.
Well, my favoritism is my property taxes. My favoritism is people not being stupid and not being too nice. Rude. No, yeah. I know they're being crybabies. So how about you guys get off your asses and do something? If you don't like our opinions, then how about you get up and actually go to an assembly meeting? How about that?
Yeah, there's a great question.
How about you actually show up? Because the rest of us do. And that's exactly why they shut down the assembly meetings. That's where I was going to go with that, was that, they shut everything down because most people who are there are more right wing. I mean, I saw a guy who has prison tattoos on his face. That dude is super right wing. He's thinking about running for assembly member, which he doesn't have bad ideas. I just don't agree with his ink, but that's not my problem because it's not my face. So well, I don't care about those things.
Let's go back to that. Something like this is, going to, we covered the Berkowitz and the bad judgment and his decision making and whatnot. So you guys are saying that they're not giving Anchorage citizens the right to elect the person that they want to have represent them. Is that what you guys are telling me?
That's exactly it. There's no rights right now. And the rights are not even our First Amendment rights, which is in the Constitution. We are part of the United States, and I don't care what all these dumb dip ding dongs do, where they're like, "Oh, if Trump wins, I'm gonna move out of the country. I'm moving to Alaska." No, you're not welcome here because you don't understand geography at all. So move somewhere else, please. But anyhow, it's one of those things that like it is part of our Constitution, and I own multiple copies of it, even a pocket copy. It is my Constitution, and it's my constitutional right to be able to say what I want, what I think, and how I feel about things. And the fact that they never listen and they don't care is very upsetting. It's also very upsetting that they've decided to now close us out because most of the people who go there are more right-wing. And I'm a nonpartisan, like I said. I don't think I've ever voted for a Democrat, but I might, but I want to have the right to choose. It's my choice. It's my choice. And these people are just, tooth and nail. They're kicking us out. They're fighting us on everything. So I get no options at all to be an American, to voice my rights, to have my rights heard, to not raise my property taxes, to utilize the money that's there to.
And how much, and Noria, real quick, just to touch base, like how much do you spend on property taxes in a year again?
Around $5,000.
That's a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
I know.
A lot of money to just like to not have children and to not have like feel like you're getting anything out of it.
Well, that's just it. And the only reason is because we live in a nice area. We live in Jewel Lake that we even get, the snow machine thing, not snow machines, the snow mover thingies like around to get all that done, but there's other people who don't get any of that stuff. There's people who don't even have streetlights. I know a lady who I talk to on Facebook all the time, and I've seen her at plenty of the assembly meetings. Like, she lives in a trailer, and she doesn't have, they've had people stabbed and all kinds of stuff outside their house. So I live in a nice home because thankfully my boyfriend and I have had good jobs. But this poor woman, her and her husband, they work their whole lives, and they don't even get to have like lights put in. And Forrest Dunbar turned that off too. He said no. I'm like, yeah, you can do whatever else you want to do.
Yeah. Well, going into like so the special election's off the table. We can't do it. We're not happening. So now we're moving into then we have the school board and we have the mayor election. And then like next year we'll have the assembly.
And the recalls.
And the recalls. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bert, go ahead and tell me about the recalls, sir, since you are the most experienced in that area.
Well, you got recall Riviera, get him completely removed. He's about the only one that's moved forward. You got one that's against Austin Quinn Davison and one other member, I cannot think of her name, in the assembly, that they have tried to do a dual in one recall. But even though it was technically two separate applications, they threw it out. This is not even making it past the clerk's office, basically. They're playing out the legislative rule of, we're going to give you 30 days before we give you an answer back once you file your paperwork. And then 30 days later, they come back and say, no, we're not going to do it. So now there's an actual lawsuit in our Superior Court that has been filed for the recalls to push them forward. And as for Riviera in Midtown, you have until January 5th to sign that recall petition and to have him removed. They need everybody that lives in Midtown to get out there and sign the petition.
So, Bert, quick questions.
Oh, and I'm going to go over to the, I'm going to go over to the page and I'm going to get the times and dates for the recall Rivera one. I'm going to get that on camera too. So you guys go ahead and talk. I'm going to go ahead and run over and grab that information.
So, Bert, quick question. So you have to live in Midtown, obviously. You have to live in that district to be able to sign that petition? Is that
Sadly,
correct?
you do. Otherwise, they would add all the signatures they needed by now.
I know, right? Okay, so my other question, and this is for both of you guys, and I don't know because I haven't done the research enough yet. I know that with Alaskan for Open Meetings, we've had the lawsuit going on, but can we sue them as individuals?
You know, that's actually really funny you mentioned that. What happens is like, I'm not an attorney, but I know when it comes to large lawsuits, they're called class action lawsuits. And what that means is that there's multiple members of that suit. So essentially, like you could sue, you could join the Alaskans for Open Meetings lawsuit. Yes, you can. And many other people can. And you know, the crazy thing is, I'm pretty sure they're going to win based upon my opinion and based on what I see. I'm going to show you guys something that I think is really important, just because the city puts their foot in their face. I say face this time just because I'm being nice, but they put their foot in their face a lot.
Foot in the mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me pull this up and I will show it to you.
I'm not as politically correct. They're wearing their ass hat.
So
yeah, I'm not politically correct either. I just said that women have equal rights, and so you know.
I'm going to turn the volume on here, but this is an important video that I'll put the link in the comments. But there's this is a recent video, happened in November. The city is just an assembly. They have very, very little power when it really comes down to it. These two courts, federal appeals court, is very, very high, right? Very, very high. And so in Georgia and in Florida, the conversion therapy ban is illegal. It's against the First Amendment rights per a federal appeals court that happened in the end of November. So technically, by all standards, everyone that has a current conversion therapy ban is breaking the law by violating your First Amendment rights. And so if you watch this video, it's a short little clip, but I highly recommend everyone in Anchorage learn about this because it is a prevalent topic. It's something that a lot of people are talking about across the country today. And I believe that the assembly has violated your First Amendment rights as citizens of the United States. And per two federal appeals court judges or groups of Georgia and in Florida have both ruled in this decision. So I think it is worth everyone's time to go look at this and realize that technically at this time the assembly is violating your rights.
This went through the Fifth Circuit, correct?
I'm not sure exactly. Like I said, I'll get the links. I'll put those in there. But I want people to know that that's going on.
Sharing a couple of the not the video versions, but the you read it versions of the exact same bill of it being passed. They've got the same one with Governor Dunleavy and about funding abortions. And that one has been recently won and I believe that was the one that was, I believe that was the Fifth Circuit Court. But the defunding of it so our state doesn't have to pay for it. It's been won in court. They found it unconstitutional for a state to have to pay for abortions. So the judges that we had here recently that overruled Governor Dunleavy's approval of the bill that was passed by our House and Senate to defund Planned Parenthood, their overruling of that can now be overruled again.
Well, and I'm, as a woman, I'm going to speak kind of differently here where, maybe men won't understand or they're not in the same place. Thankfully, I've never had to have an abortion. In my family, it was you get married or you have the baby and you get married.
The way I was
raised Catholic. So, but I also do believe that it's a woman's choice depending on if it's molestation or other things. I don't think that it should be used as a birth control technique, certainly. My mom's a retired OBGYN. I don't think that it should be based on that. But, if I was raped, I'm not quite sure that I'd want to keep the baby. So
I understand. And like you said, that's a very personal thing for women, ultimately. And I don't think that I'm not in any position to be able to set policy or to even have that kind of conversation, unfortunately. But
well, the other part of the conversation is that I don't think that it's right. You know, like my brother, if he got somebody knocked up and he decided that he wanted to have the baby and he can afford it and he can take care of it and he can do everything, yes, the woman has to carry it, but why does the man not have a choice? So that's really not fair either, you know, from a man's perspective.
You have a good point.
I think
I don't want to dive too much into abortion. It's just like, it's one of those very controversial topics that can just like steer us way off course, unfortunately.
I know, and I don't either, because my opinions are my opinions. My opinions.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your opinion very much. I think it's very valuable personally, especially from a woman's perspective. It's not something I can offer. I just can't offer too much of the conversation, unfortunately.
I know, because you guys aren't allowed to. It's total horse shit.
Well, it's not just that. It's just in general. We shouldn't. I don't think men really have that place, in my opinion. So,
in my opinion, I do think that men should have that place. If my brother wanted to raise that baby and take care of that baby, I just mean that when it comes to like the individual decision of like as a woman, I just leave that up to women to make that determination as a collective. Both of you decided.
I'll just leave you guys with a piece of what I think about it. You can do whatever you want to do. Just don't make me pay for it. Just like you can make your own choice.
Yeah,
you got a great point. You do.
Religion. You can make your own choice of what gender you want to be. You can make your own choice to have an abortion. Just don't make me pay for it when it comes right down to it. That's all I care about.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And like I said, it's not a birth control option. You can't just go get a bunch of them because you make bad decisions. That's not the right way to do things. You know,
if I make the wrong decision, I'll pay for it. Dang it, you know.
I know. Well, and like I said, we're not going to get stuck on this sticky topic, but
no, it's okay. We haven't talked about.
How about I segue us into something else here, real quick?
Sure.
There we go.
You personally had an article that I know that you put on Anchorage's Dying's page. I reshared it. I noticed that it didn't reshare under your link. But it was an article written about the social workers that they're now putting in place of our police department to handle the vagrancies and everything else. That article, and I did notice that it did give you credit for my share though. So if you're watching that one's numbers grow for how many shares it's got, it's because it's gone viral on my page.
Yeah, no, it's that's a great tie-in. You know, there's a lot of Seattle-esque things that are going on in Anchorage, and that's a really good tie-in. Is that I think that, like you pointed out, it's a really popular, really controversial topic, and Noria is a great person to have a little bit of feedback and her opinion on it. Noria, are you aware of Felix Rivera's plan for mental health workers?
The one that's already happened.
Rivera's opinions matter absolutely nothing to me.
Well, you know, I like you to hear this.
How about the ordinance?
Really
he wants to do whatever is good for him and whatever his political plan is. It's the same thing.
Okay, so what's
that's exactly why Forrest didn't take being acting mayor, because he's trying to actually run for mayor.
Yeah,
and he is the last person to be mayor of this city. Trust me.
Well, I just want to point out. So what happened is like they're in Seattle. They have a mental health worker. She was at her office and a client stabbed her and like attacked her very violently. And shocking. This is just a foreshadowing, in my opinion, to what's going to happen in the future if mental health workers are replacing police officers.
They're not equipped to do that. That's not what their job is. Their job is already too difficult. There's no reason that they should be replacing them. Just like prisons should not be replacing mental health institutions. Now, granted, mental health institutions shouldn't be, using electrodes and things on people and, lobotomies and all kinds of other weird stuff. But no, I mean, the prison facility is not prepared. These people they're guards. They're not supposed to try and be mental health workers. I know a guy who used to work in the ICE prison system in Arizona, and this is going to sound very gross, and I apologize, but he would have to sit there on, 12-hour duties watching these people trying to not kill themselves. There was a guy who would cut shapes out of his soap, and then he would carve up his wiener and put them in there. Like, who does that? Who does that to their wiener? And then put soap in there? like in the shapes of stars and hearts. Like, that's just crazy talk. There's no way, like he was on suicide watch. There's no way that you can try and like watch all these people at the same time. And these people are losing their damn minds. Some people are just sick.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
it's just, if you look at the situation as a whole, right? You got, you like you pointed out, people are sick. They need help. Right. And so, like, you know, putting them out in the cold isn't an option, you know, and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on each person, or $100,000, $125,000, however much it is on each person is not an option.
No.
When do you sit back and realize that this isn't working?
It's just enabling. Well, that's a problem. Is it? I don't know why, because I think that honestly, in ways, that side of the fence is very sick. They think that, you know, what's crazy is they're the ones who like Antifa. You know, you have a bunch of white people walking down streets in Phoenix, Arizona with automatic machine guns who are totally against guns, and they're totally against your civil liberties of being able to use your First Amendment right. And it's like, do you understand that you're able to use your rights right now?
Yeah.
Like, so you're telling me that we should close you down and say no guns for you and no talking for you.
Yeah.
But then you know, at the same time, you're able to just do this. Like, get out of your pants. Like, what is your problem?
Yeah.
I
agree. You know, I see a lot of problems with people being very hypocritical and not being honest with people. And I see the liberal left is very, you know, they don't tell the people everything. They give them just like what they want to hear, and they spin stories, and they use various special interest groups to try to, like, you know, make you feel all cozy and good about them. But the reality is like their policies aren't in the benefit of Anchorage. They're not in the benefit of business. They're not in the benefit of homeowners.
Of social good.
Of social good. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that it's a difficult. I think it's really easy as a politician to do your job right, and it's literally all you have to do is listen to the people and do what they want.
Yep. Well, and that's what Sarah Rasmussen and Mia Costello have done in my district, because I told them, I had them both over at my house. We sat down at my dinner table and I talked to them, and I was like, hey, look, you screw me over after I put your face on a 4x8 sign on my balcony. I'll tell you what, this isn't going to go over well, because I can look up your property taxes where you live like super easy.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely. And like, when you look at this, we're really trying to just look at overall issues of Anchorage, right? We're going back, and Noria, I appreciate you coming on the call. I know that like some of the topics and stuff may be controversial or difficult for some.
Yeah, but that's life.
Get over it.
That is
ultimately.
Life. People have to get over it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the sad part. I'm tired. I'm super tired of being PC.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't live we got to live our lives, and if people can't handle what we have to say on a personal level, they're definitely not going to like what we have to say on a business level, because there's not much difference between the two.
Well, and guess what?
Because,
then
like,
don't listen. If you don't like it, just be a sissy and don't listen. Yeah. That's what it is. What your problem is that your mama didn't give you enough spankings.
Hey, that may be true. Well, maybe true. So let's talk about hope. Let's talk about plan for the future, and like let's end this out. You know, we're going into Christmas and New Year's, and everybody gave me a hard time because I produced all these really awful. And Noria, if you get a chance, go watch. It's under the profile Is Anchorage Dying on Facebook, and there's a bunch of videos there. I highly recommend going and watch. And then AlaskansForHopeMeetings.com has a bunch of videos about the various business leaders, mayor candidates, things like that. This event tonight was put on by Is Anchorage Dying and Politadick, and so we put this together. We are coordinating, working together, going forward on a project specifically around Is Anchorage Dying. We're going to be using a lot of Politadick's content and other media, but mostly a lot of his content from back over the years. And we're going to put together a series around Anchorage and how terrible Anchorage has been managed. And we're just going to be done very similarly to the Seattle is Dying series, but we're going to do it mini episodes, like mini clips, and we're going to produce them and put them out on Facebook. We're also going to throughout 2021, just further emphasize and hammer away on some of these like really controversial issues that people don't want to talk about.
Well, and Philip, I think this is a really important thing. And that's just it. People don't want to talk about things, but guess what? Just because you don't want to deal with it doesn't mean it's not happening. So you have to focus on moving forward and having positive energy and positive momentum in the things that you want to accomplish. Even if it's not the same things that I want to accomplish, you know, like the safe places or whatever on campuses or whatever that crap is now. You know, I don't care about that nonsense, but it's one of those things that it's just, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a grumpy old man for my age. I'm only 38, but it is what it is. And
I could fix Anchorage's budget problems this year in a blink of an eye if they'd listen to me.
Let me hear you.
I know. Well, if they listen to all of it,
I could fix the entire state's budget problem in a blink of an eye, but nobody cares to seem to listen.
That's actually a really good. I love that point. You know, it's really weird. What was that about listening? Earlier I said, you know, all you have to do to be a good politician is just listen to your constituents, and somehow it seems like the Anchorage and the Alaska people are not really listening too well.
No, everybody wants to be too nice. That's their problem. Everybody's being too nice. You need to be more Chicago or more like Southern Arizona, where you have to deal with gangsters and all kinds of weird crap. Because guess what? Then you learn how to deal with stuff. And it's just one of those things. You have to stop being a crybaby.
We just got to act just like him.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing.
What were you saying?
You have to manage your bills, right? Don't you have to manage your bills? Like you have to pay your
you want to be like Beltrami, like the union guy?
That's exactly it. We got to be exactly like him. We need to demand what we want. You don't give us what we want. We're going to take our 60,000 members strong here in the state of Alaska. We're going to take our strong arm. We're going to take all of their union dues.
Yeah, I'll stop paying my property taxes.
Yeah.
We'll see how well that works out for you. And I'll convince all my neighbors to do so as well. This is enough. Enough is enough. And the thing is that you have to manage your bills at home, right? You have to pay your property taxes. You have to pay your homeowner's insurance. You have to pay your car insurance. You have to pay for your heating and water bill. You have to pay for your AWU. You got to pay for all this stuff, right? You got to pay for your mortgage or rent. Like, it's not that hard. You can figure out a budget for your home, but when it's not your money, all of a sudden it's not important. So the problem is now it's like, okay, well, I have all this free money, so just go buy this Golden Lion hotel, or I could just do whatever I want. No, it's not your money, turd bucket. It's my money. My money.
It's so sad is I can't take this video down. There's just too much. There's just too much good stuff on this. Like it's just too much. It's excellent.
Well, I warned you that you get me online, it's going to be unfiltered, and I like to leave it there.
And that's why I made a distinction of putting the banner, making sure Alaskans for Hope meeting was not on it, so no one can make any claim that this was, a biased or this or that. This is my platform. I'm working on with Politadick. We're discussing individual personal opinions about things. Yeah. There's no organizational matters in this meeting. Please just leave all those comments alone this meeting. I would really appreciate it. I have got nothing but just hate mail from people recently, and I really appreciate if I'd stop getting that.
No, you tell me what their address is, and I'll go give them a visit.
No, it's okay. It's just people are very, they're very passionate.
So have you guessed yet how to fix Anchorage's spending problem?
I'm sorry?
Have you fixed how to fix the bulk of Anchorage's spending problem? I mean, it's a statewide issue.
Go ahead and give me your opinion on that. I'd like to hear it because you are really well plugged into the community. So I'd like to hear your opinion.
The virus has given us 100% wide opening that has brought Alaska into the 21st century for the first time statewide. Thanks to these virtual classrooms, and I know everybody's knocking them, saying what a disaster they are. And I'll agree. What the ASD put together as their own platform, what the state of Alaska built, trying to build a brick and mortar school into a virtual platform. And they expected it to work. That's what I call being an idiot that is wearing their ass hat. They don't understand. You don't mix the two. We've already proven, they've been proven since 1988 that it doesn't work. And we were used to be the reason why I go with that 1988 number is because that's when the school laws changed. That brought in diversity and seats being put into the seat being worth more than actually giving you a quality education. Virtual classrooms, we've got the established homeschool programs that have been around here for decades now. nearly every single one of them that are homeschools here in the state of Alaska have been virtual for about a decade now. And as their platform moved away more from books, more into the virtual learning of how to be able to do things. Myself, I got personal experience involved with it. My kiddo decided I am not going to go to the regular school system this year. Told me outright, I want to go into virtual classrooms permanently. So I said, find a good homeschool. Mine being one of those, and I like to call her, she's my abnormal wonder child, because she's what every parent wishes that they had. She got motivated. She went out and she interviewed every single homeschool that was available, including the one the governor had provided at the end of the school year last year for the state. They put that $500,000 out for that virtual classroom. And she investigated them all. She decided to join iGreatAgain this year and started out as a sophomore this year, right on time with her class. She's a straight A honor roll student, has been since day one. Like I said, I'm one of those kids that most parents dream we all wish we had one of those in the house. Well, she turned around and she interviewed all these schools, and she brought to me what I would call a PowerPoint presentation, brought the folder up to me, sat it down on the table, had all these spreadsheets built out, graphs showing how this school's performance versus this one, and says, this is the one I want to go to. Long story short, started out as a sophomore this year. She'll be graduating as a senior as soon as we turn in her final piece of paper this week. We're going by the homeschool.
Congratulations.
She had her test.
Yeah,
She's
congratulations, Bert. That's great.
Less than 6 months.
Congratulations.
Well, that's a really good thing. You know, and I think that it's important to listen to your children and how they learn. I babysat my neighbor's kids the other day. They have 4 kids. Oh my God, so many since I have none. 4 hours was like terrorism. They got an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and 2 twins. They got, well, not 2 twins. They got twins who are 1 year old. And I was like, oh my God, everybody's running everywhere and losing their minds. They got to get outside and get some fresh air. And I'm not like that. My brother can learn online. He's great at it. I can't do online stuff. That's just not how I'm
the same way, Noria. I can't do online either. I have a hard time with it.
Well, see, that's where the homeschools come into play. You don't just get rid of all of the brick and mortar schools. You have people that just have
I like the
one-on-one with teachers. You're a classroom student.
Yeah.
If you get to the point that you no longer need the one-on-one with the teachers, you move out of the classroom environment and you go more virtual.
I also like the idea of doing like a collective.
100% virtual.
I also like the collective idea of doing like 5 or 6 students with like, one teacher and like a neighborhood kind of situation. I think a smaller, the smaller the amount of students per teacher, the better, obviously. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah,
you don't hold back the self-motivated ones anymore.
That's what I
you
brought
got
up
those
the other
like
day
blind that turn them loose and away they go.
Yeah, so since we're touching on schools, let's go into that a little bit in regards to the school board races coming up. So we got some school board races. Are you guys familiar with any of the candidates at all? Do you guys know of any of them?
No, I'm actually thinking about even running. I'm like, ugh.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I mean, ultimately, what I would highly suggest doing is just at least get to know the candidates and like reach out and touch base with them and say, like, we have to be involved in the process. We have to be involved. It's really funny is I got this letter. Show you guys my Alaskan-esque. I got the lieutenant governor letter for my voter ID stuff getting stolen. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I got one of those.
I'm one of those guys. So I know.
Waiting to see mine in the mail.
I'm not even in Alaska, and I got one. So hey, I deserve some credibility.
Registration. I was so pissed off. Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. I was so upset.
You're fine.
So did you double check and made sure you didn't vote in our election?
I did not.
No, I definitely voted. I was more pissed that they might have stolen what I voted for. Because I turned in my boyfriend's mail-in ballot because he does rotation work. And then I went and voted in person at Sears Mall. So I was all kinds of upset when they were like, yeah, it might have been stolen. I was like, well, how the hell do they know who I voted for then? Anyway, it turns out it was just their data thing that had been hacked if you signed up online or whatever. What I was going to say real quick back to the school thing though is that's what I brought up the other day, Philip, was about co-ops. My brother has talked about this for a long time. If he had kids, that's what he would do. You know, if somebody's an engineer, then they teach those kind of dynamics. You know, like for me, I'm a pilot, you know, or I'm good at marketing and sales. So I work on those things, you know. So like a parent teaches like every day certain classes, and they pass down the education that they have to try and teach students, you know,
I gotta say, for the love of God.
Wait, what? Oh. But, you know, I think that it's one of those things that could be fairly important for people like moving into the future. Like we talked about hope and different things. If I had a kid, I would want them to probably not necessarily go to regular school. I got jumped and beat up a bunch of times as a kid because I'm a white girl in a Mexican town, and it's fine, but you know, it is what it is. But I don't know. I think that having a cooperative of people who are good at certain things or certain tasks, you know, like you're a journalist, so you're obviously good at English.
Yeah.
So I think that exactly, with Dunbar as mayor.
Yeah, I had fun with this one.
Yeah. I think that it's a good thing for, you know, people to look into. If kids are going to be good at being homeschooled, which I needed the interaction, my brother didn't necessarily. We were different. You know, my boyfriend's an engineer. He's good at learning online. I am not. I still refuse how to use our printer and our my new laptop. I don't know how to use anything. I'm trying to learn it, but I don't care.
I'm the type of person that you gotta sit down in front of somebody and you gotta read it to me. You gotta let me write it out with my own hands. You gotta let me apply whatever is being taught to me over and over and over again.
Yep.
And
practice
then at that point,
it on my own.
I begin to learn it. And then once I think I'm starting to learn it and realize I haven't learned a damn thing yet, I walk over to the wall, I bang my head a couple dozen more times, and I go right back to start writing it down, rephrasing it out loud, reading it out loud, rereading it, reapplying it until I get it stone cold that now I'm teaching other people how to do it.
Well, that's how I got through mechanics.
I'm not an easy
I'm an aircraft mechanic.
Like what you're describing. I bang my head to get it figured out.
Well, my brother, he's great at teaching, but he is not great at doing. He's always like, "Can you help me fix my car?" And I'm like, "No, I'm an aircraft mechanic. Like, I can build a helicopter for you, but I don't know how to fix your stupid car. That's not what I learned." You know, and like I only learn as much as I can absorb at that time. Yeah. You know, and it's just one of those things that everybody's different. So your daughter being that interested in figuring out how she wanted to be homeschooled was very important. That would not be something that I want to do, but my boyfriend can do it. My brother did it. I mean, shoot, he got his MBA when he was in Iraq. He had his Bachelor of Science in microbiology before that. He has his accounting degree. I don't know what he's learning next. The kid always learns so much. I can't remember anything.
Yeah, that's where these hybrid schools come into play. I mean, if my kiddo could have had the opportunity to work at her own pace since day one and not been held back, she would have been graduated by the time she was out of the 8th grade. She would have been a senior at that point and been done with school. Moving straight into
absolutely
college.
True.
You know, the young Doogie Howser. You guys all remember Doogie Howser, MD, right?
Well, I do, yeah. Well, and, you know, and that's the thing is that it's just, I think that it's, you know, people have to learn at their own pace. And I was one of those people. I went to college. The local community college would give you free classes when you were a sophomore in high school, but they didn't actually have anything in the bylaws that said that you couldn't start as a freshman. The only thing you had to do was pay for your own books. So I went to them and said that I wanted to start. I couldn't even drive, you know, myself to school. And I was like, I want to take classes. Like, well, you can't, you're not a sophomore. And I was like, well, technically you don't have any information here saying that I can't. So
yeah,
we're going to go ahead and do that.
Well, you know, it kind of comes down to like, you know, education as a whole, especially when you guys have children, right? And it's another area where I don't really have a lot to offer, but that I do in regards to like on the leadership side of things, right? So when you're looking at policy standards and like setting policies, like one of the things I keep hearing about Alaska is that they spend a lot of money on education, but they're not getting a lot out of it. So what are you guys' opinions on that? Do you guys think that obviously they're spending entirely too much money for what the quality of education that they're getting?
All these liberal union asshats, as Bert put it quite positively. I would have put it in a much not nicely way, but yeah, I've gone to some of these meetings, and these people are asshats. Well, these unions are totally ridiculous. We don't have unions in Arizona. I mean, we have some, but we found that they are not actually that useful. And all they do, and the problem is that your kid's getting conditioned. Like, at least his daughter is going to a school online where she's actually just learning information as opposed to being taught by what that teacher's opinions are. And if your kid spends that much time with somebody, they're going to start to learn that. And that's a very problematic thing because, you know, I don't want my kid to be a total leftist and be like, I need a safe space. I'm like, I'll give you a safe space over my knee, or your grandma will, you know.
Yeah, and they have them in our high schools. Like, they have them in our middle schools.
Yeah, it's out of control.
Safe spaces aren't there now to where your student goes to school and they don't feel like they're having a good day. They're losing it. They need to take a break. The world is just too much for them. They can get up, walk out of class. They have a special classroom that's set up that they call the safe space that your student can go to.
Well, that's
it's
totally
not
ridiculous.
Very well
if my kid ever told me that, I'd be like, you get the hell out of there, go back to class. If I have to come down there, I swear to sweet Jesus, somebody's going to get beat today.
The teachers and the principals, they don't tell you that they're in there. And it's one of those things that we've seen it happen more and more often. When I found out they had a safe space in my kid's high school, it was like, wow, I was like floored. It's like, you're joking with me. I thought that only didn't start till you got to college.
Well, here's the thing is there was no safe spaces. I remember when I was a kid and I told my mom when she spanked me one time and I was probably in grade school or something that I was going to call the cops on her for child abuse. She's like, go ahead. I don't have to deal with you for 24 hours when I go to prison, like, or go to jail or whatever. She didn't give two flying shits, you know? And now it's like, and my mom is still to this day. And I talk to my mom every day. My mom is one of my best friends. She's like, you're never too big for me to take over my knee. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. You know, like, you got to be afraid of your mama. Like,
no,
you got to have some respect.
Absolutely. Respect is a big deal, you know, ultimately. And I think that's where the assembly, I don't think they have a lot of respect for the citizens of Anchorage either.
They don't at all. That's the biggest problem with them. And that's why hopefully they will start losing here soon. You know, I think that like you said, and what I'm kind of afraid of is having, you know, multiple Republicans on the docket or on the, you know, on the voting ballot. I think that that's going to end up becoming an issue because we're going to end up divided. And I'm actually divided. I'm not quite sure who I want to vote for right now.
Well, neverdunbar.com, that's for sure.
Okay, well, first of all, no, Dunbar is not even an option.
When he's getting into his little coat, and Anchorage is the little coat, and the government is Farley in the center of that coat. So it'd be that guy in a little coat. It'll be Anchorage in a little coat. And look what happens when you did put it around government.
No, Dunbar is not an option. Like I said earlier, I pointed at him and I said, it will be over my dead body that you end up being mayor of this town.
Bert, and that's funny is because he's ran for all kinds of stuff and he hasn't won anything yet. Like, he got the assembly seat, but he's like, he ran against Don Young and lost there. He's ran this, he lost that. You know, he's like, how many things are you going to run for before you realize that people don't like you?
Until I quit yelling at him.
Neighborhood that likes him. That's about as far as it gets.
Yeah. And he just seems like everyone loves him and he's like super happy, but like I post these videos about him and then he like banned me. So I can't imagine why. I mean, no idea.
He's a sissy. You know what's hilarious?
I don't know what.
You know how many people don't like me, and guess how little I care.
Yeah.
I've never banned anybody from Facebook because I don't care.
Yeah,
be a grown up. Like, people don't always like you.
I'm not calling him like anything bad. I'm just joking with him.
I'm just
messing with him, just pointing out
his
flawed management and lack of leadership and lack of ability to like think like an American and be a represent the Constitution in an effective way as an ex-military person. You know, I don't have in my opinion, I think Dunbar is a disgrace for Anchorage and Alaska. I think Chris Constant's a disgrace for Anchorage and Alaska. I think Austin Quiz Davis is a disgrace for Alaska. Those are
pretty
all
much everybody on the assembly.
Forrest Dunbar and Forrest Gump are really similar, and then they completely fall apart. You know that scene when he's running and he's got those leg braces on, and those leg braces break off of his legs, and he just keeps right on running. And next thing you know, he goes face down into the ground. That's where Forrest Dunbar and Forrest Gump divert different directions.
I hope that you are right, Bert. I really hope that you're right, because I don't know if I could handle him being, our next mayor. Like, I really can't.
Well,
And that's why I'm
unity with
concerned.
Alaskans
So
to
Noria, Politadick, both of you guys, the reality is that you guys are the ones in charge in a lot of ways. People like you are the ones in charge of who gets elected in a lot of ways, mostly because it's so early. It's December. A lot of people aren't even paying attention. If you go to like Dunbar's website, here's a great example. He's like, he doesn't even have a secure website. So it's like, he doesn't it's a pretty simple thing. SSLs, it's really interesting. If you guys look at the hack that happened with the election, and just some little things that I'm going to showcase just because I like to make fun of people. But when you're dealing with technology and you don't know what you're doing, it can be quite dangerous. And I'm just going to give you guys a good example of what not to do. So you see this right here. It says connection not secure. This is on the Anchorage Municipality of Anchorage website, and it specifically says connection not secure. That is an avenue to go through a website and get access to back channel systems that you would not traditionally have access to. And this is on your city's website. Another great example of this is on Mr. Dunbar's website. Again, not secure. This is like some basic stuff, man. If you can't even figure this stuff out, then I don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like,
I couldn't figure that stuff out.
I know, but this is day one
totally
stuff. You know what I mean?
Stuff.
But you're not running for mayor either. You know what I mean?
If you're that cheap that you're running for mayor and can't secure your site, you're too cheap for our city.
The city can't even secure their site.
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of the problem, is that they waste money in egregious ways that it shouldn't be wasted in. It should be used for something else, and they're not utilizing it properly. Like, that's one of my biggest concerns, is that there's 10 cents a gallon is what we're paying between Palmer, I think, and Girdwood. They have a 10 cents a gallon tax, and then they were charging for plastic bags for a while, or any bags for a while. And then the marijuana tax is like at $1 million a month.
Long time ago. Ever since they raised the 10 cents, as soon as they raised the 10 cents a gallon gas tax that they did in Anchorage, I quit buying my gas in Anchorage. I'm anywhere between 10 to 20 cents cheaper buying it here in the valley than it is buying it in Anchorage. Well,
it's totally ridiculous. They didn't even give us the option, or they'll listen to you, but then they don't actually listen to you. They'll let you speak for your 2 minutes, but after that, it's like, hey, go fork yourself.
We need to get a bylaw put into place that says that they have to disclose before any vote takes place, report every single email that they've received in opposition or for whatever ordinance or amendment that they want to put into place.
Agreed. Well, and I think that it should come down to the voter.
That this was said that we had overwhelming statements saying that they wanted this to happen, but they never tell you what the opposition was. Why was a good example was in the Mat-Su Valley when they had the gun ban for the gun ranges that was going on there. And the opposition was 4-1 against that ordinance being passed. What happened? The assembly overruled the majority and still passed it, made it a mandatory Mat-Su Valley wide. This wasn't just the one and only community was having this problem. They made it throughout the entire Mat-Su, passed this ordinance, and the minority outweighed the majority's vote on it.
Well,
and then the city, bringing it up earlier about the mask mandate, city council did it, Palmer City Council did it a little bit differently. And I appreciate Edna there, the mayor of Palmer. She did a wonderful job of exposing it for what it was.
Thank you for pointing this out.
That gave their testimony saying that they were all for the mask mandate, and 490 Alaskans came forward and said they're 100% against the mask mandate. Majority outweighed minority.
You can pry this this weapon out of my cold dead hand is how I feel. The only thing that I'm going to do is try and make it outside into the street so I don't ruin my property, you know? So my boyfriend doesn't have to claim that somebody died in the house.
Yeah.
So,
well, speaking of which, let's dive into that a little bit. I know it's a little early, kind of like, I'd love to, like, at some point between now and April, I'm going to start asking people who you're going to vote for. That's going to be something I'm going to ask. So, Noria, if you plan on coming on the call, I'd love to hear your opinion about specifically why you chose that person. Really, why? I think it's important. I'm not saying that I understand it's a private matter who you vote for, whatnot, but recognizing why you support a candidate and being vocal and letting people know. I think conservatives are missing that. And I think they're primarily scared because of the liberal left and these people, hating on you and making you feel bad because you're a conservative, or making you feel bad because you're nonpartisan, or making you feel bad because of this.
I get it on both ends. I get it from the liberal left on a daily basis. They attack me consistent and constantly. And I get it from the right also. I will not name names at this particular point in time, but there are enough rhinos that made it back into Juneau this year that literally they trash on me on a literal daily basis, so to speak. Figuratively, I don't want to say on a literal that they are doing it daily, but they are out there trying to say, oh, we got your back up until a certain point. I saw it during the primaries this year. I'm out there. I'm working my butt off. I'm doing all of this, my own personal campaigning for the candidates that I like. I'm being very vocal out there. And I watch all of this outside money come pouring into our state, $250,000. And who did all that money go to? Every single candidate that we were trying to get unseated that was against the candidates that I had. And being told, oh, this is all for the betterment of the good. When it turned out, these were the same ones that sold out our voices and our votes to be in the binding caucus.
Well, they're going to keep doing
we're not
that.
Gonna dive,
That's the
we're not
problem.
going to dive too much into the state stuff. We'll do that, Politadick, definitely. I definitely want to keep the Is Anchorage Dying specifically around Anchorage. I know that there's a bigger message around Alaska politics, and you and I are very familiar with those topics, and we'll cover those in depth. But you do have a good point on a lot of areas in that. But just tying it all through, and let's just close it out for the evening, guys. But when we're looking at going into 2021, what would you guys like to see come election time, April? Obviously not Dunbar. So one of the candidates, and one of the existing candidates. So there's Bill Evans. There's, as far as I'm aware, there's Bill Evans. There's David Bronson. And there's Mike Robbins. I recommend everybody reaching out to all these candidates. I'm going to put their links to their website in the comments, so that way you guys can reach out to these people. And then later on, please go to AlaskansForMeetings.com. You will see there's 2 videos currently done by one for Mike Robbins, mayor candidate, and one for Dave Bronson, mayor candidate, along with others. But there's 2 1-hour-long videos of each one of those, and they give you guys unbridled look of them as candidates. And I highly recommend going and looking at those when you have an opportunity.
Well,
otherwise, what would you guys like to see in 2021? What would be a great Christmas gift come 2021 next year?
Not having to deal with all this crap.
Yeah.
No offense.
Well, the Assembly is the one that caused all this.
Yeah, I know.
First thing is I would like to see the Anchorage mayor and Anchorage Assembly, whoever does get elected there, to actually follow the laws. Number 2, no longer using our judicial branch to legislate the laws and ordinances. They are to be passed by them and the people of Alaska. Then the judges only get involved once it's been, litigated out there. So that would be number 2. Number 3, who do I want to see voted in? Conservatives, of course.
Yeah.
But I will put it out there very simply. I'd love to see the top 3 conservative candidates that are running for mayor right now. One of them, I think, needs to bow out gracefully right at the moment. There is one out of the 3 that's not exactly the strongest of candidates that are out there. That would be my suggestion at this point. The other 2, they need to go into a back room somewhere, I don't care how they work it out between the two of them. If this is going to be what happens in fight clubs stays in fight club type of thing in the back room, that's what it needs to turn into. Then that's it. But they need to get down to one solid candidate to run in this election, so that all of us can get behind them and push them through to the finish line. Because the alternative of who they're running against, we can't live with the alternative. Fauci, Dunbar. I mean,
No, the thing is, like, we're looking at when you're looking at like the opportunities that are available to us, right? And so, like for you guys, for Anchorage, and so you have Dunbar, you got Mike Robbins, you got Dave Bronson, Bill Evans. Obviously Dunbar is off the list. I don't think he's even, like, personally, I don't even think he has a chance. That's my opinion. But
I don't know.
I don't want to give him that. I don't want to take it away from him either, because I don't want to be wrong. I just couldn't live with myself if I was wrong about that. It'd be really sad. But looking at,
got to think of which direction Anchorage has leaned over the years. They got that mail-in voting. We wouldn't have Berkowitz if it wasn't for mail-in voting.
I understand.
I don't see him being in office anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and I didn't even get to like do a mail-in at the time. We were living with my boyfriend's hockey buddy. Like, he never really stayed there, so it was pretty much just me by myself. But there was 5 people who were getting mail there, including him and I, and we were both registered voters. And neither of us ever got anything to vote. But yet people who are like Rich, Richard, Dick, like whatever it was, and then Kathy, Catherine, Katie, whatever, like multiple people were on the news saying that they got multiple ballots. But I didn't even get one at my house with 5 different names.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's why I started doing the research, trying to figure out where is this even done at? And it was done in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, give me a break here. This is ridiculous. And it's not any good in Arizona. And we've been doing it for decades.
Well, one of the things that I would like to see, speaking on that, is more election integrity, obviously. One of those things that like makes me feel a little bit of hope is the Recall Rivera coming up in January. I've heard they've already collected enough signatures. So get down to Dwayne's Antique Market.
Oh, don't
76
sit there. They need more. They always need more signatures.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I mean. 76 Dwayne's Antique, 76th Avenue. You're going to be able to go down there and sign 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., I believe, or 9 a.m., I believe, to 6 p.m. every day, like 7 days a week. Get down there and sign that recall if you live in District 4. Like I said, they've already collected enough signatures, but we'd like to put together like 4,000 or more to put in front of because there's only like 2,800 needed. So I'd love to put like 4,000 on the table in front of and so that way.
Live in the district.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that don't live in the district that sign. So you got to make sure you got almost double.
Yeah, we absolutely have to crush. We have to win that, and that just proves to us in a lot of ways that election integrity is still a thing, or at least on our local level, and we can hold our people accountable. Politadick, Bert, could you tell me a little bit about why Felix is facing recall real quick? I do want to cover that a little bit.
Well, the main thing that they're getting them on is for closing down the assembly chambers. That's the same recall that they're trying to push against acting Quinn Mayor and the other legislator or the assembly member that is there. The other is suspending of the CARES Act money, and the way that they have delegated that out. They put that money into special interest pet projects that they have been trying to get passed for the last 6 years and can convince people to give them the money to spend it on. Now they said, oh boy, look at this windfall. Alaskans that are suffering don't need it, but our government special interests that we have been wanting to make sure we line their pockets can be well funded now. That's why the beetle kill is being removed. Centennial Park just started today. They had to fix the walking bridge for another, $6 million there, a walking bridge that employed a whole 6 people.
Something about trails too.
For 6 people.
Some kind of trail thing that Berkowitz did too, some kind of trail project for union workers.
That was the walking bridge trail, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, they didn't even finish it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
And
one last thing, there's a lot of comments. I don't want to like take away from them. You know, it's sad. It's unfortunate we have 2 different platforms and we operate on the 2 different platforms, but let people know they can join the Zoom meetings. We put the links up in every meeting, and so you can join and ask questions and join in on the conversation. This is purely for community outreach. You know, we started off with like business leaders and all these other people. Now we want to get down to the actual people and touch base with like everybody. And we want everybody to, I want everyone to come on here and tell me how they got robbed, how they get, had to like fight off, this, that, or the other thing to try to live their lives. That's what I want to hear. I want people to come on and be honest and be straightforward with us, so that way people can hear these stories. I was robbed in Anchorage. The only place in the entire world I've ever been. I've been all over the world. I've never been robbed. So that's something to think about whenever you're like thinking about the safety of your city and the place you live. So I do appreciate everyone coming on today. I know it's been a really long. We didn't plan for it to be this long, but the material is just so good. And the reality is like these things probably, a lot of things that we said today probably haven't been said out loud. Or on camera, and talking about Berkowitz, talking about Dunbar, talking about the assembly, talking about how these people are literally running Anchorage into the ground and then shoving it off a cliff and then lighting it on fire.
Yeah, the small businesses are decimated. I can't believe what they've done to them. I mean, this is not how I make my living. Most of you guys may know, that. The people watching may know it, but this is not what I do to make a living. Politadick is started out as a hobby for me in the very beginning of all of this, and it wasn't until January of this year that I actually turned it into a legitimate company. Didn't start even advertising for it until we got into July, when they finally unlocked us from the COVID. I felt bad about asking people for donations. I couldn't see asking people for help when they, like myself, we didn't have jobs. I'm in what they do consider the critical industry, help industry, to keep people going out there. So I didn't get completely shut down myself, but the people that I service, on the other hand, did. The mom and pop tourist locations, anybody that was sitting inside of a mall. I've lost the Northway Mall this year, people in the Diamond Center. I've lost 18 businesses in Anchorage that I'm no longer going to be able to service this next year because they're no longer in business. Down into the southern area, we're talking going from Seldovia, Homer, Halibut Cove, Kenai, Soldotna, Seward, Kodiak, Ketchikan, Sitka, and Juneau. I have lost another 39 customers that I know will not be there next year. 50% of my normal customer base was not here this year. They did not call me, or when I did call them, 10% of them answered their phone. Those 10% that were still open said that we're not bringing in enough, nothing more than to just keep our lights on at this point. If things don't change for us by the end of the year, don't expect us to be here next year. Well, guess what? Things didn't change by the end of the year. I don't see them being here next year. That it was not looking very positive. And I watched, if it wasn't for the Matsu Valley not locking things down, I probably wouldn't be in business today. I'd be one of those people standing in the food lines right now, waiting for my turn to get whatever they could give me to help me feed my family.
It's really weird, guys, is that the Anchorage is actually coming from an outside perspective. The city is actually more locked down than Washington State. And so Washington State was the initial hotspot for this supposed virus. And we had supposedly, I was walking around Seattle with no mask. Like during this time, this thing was supposed to be spreading like crazy and all this stuff. But I'm not saying that either here nor there on the virus in particular, but the fact that Anchorage, which is like way smaller, decided to like put these absolutely draconian measures in place. I've never once had any of the businesses here in Washington closed down. The businesses have always been open the entire time. There's been very, very little local policing, I've not seen a single agent or CDC officer or whoever the hell these assembly members or mayor are sending out to meet these business owners or try to enforce them on keeping the rules and whatnot in place. The sad part is that you have these like just absolute tyrants in charge. And we have some of those down here, but even the ones we have down here aren't nearly as bad as Austin Quinn Davis, Chris Constant, Forrest Dunbar, and the rest of these like literally, in my opinion, crazy people. I feel like their mentalities towards the businesses, their mentalities towards fiscal responsibility, their mentalities towards government, their mentalities towards their people are all just completely wrong.
It is.
Well, that's just it. They get to get away with it.
I mean, being in the Fifth Avenue Mall last night, I went up to the food court, and I know, well, I did know nearly every business that is operating up in there because of my service industry that I'm in. And to be able to talk to them for a little bit, I said, how are you doing here? And they said, if it wasn't for the locals still coming in during their lunch hours to buy food and take it back to their offices to go eat, they wouldn't even be here. The reason why you see half of the food court now closed and nobody filling it anymore is because they don't have enough business to bring people in there. And it's not just the tourists, it's the locals too. Who wants to go into Fifth Avenue Mall on their lunch hour, go and buy food from the court and can't eat it there? You got to take it back to your office because you can't be eating it in the building or you're breaking the mandates they got in place. It was devastating. It was really heartbreaking talking to them last night. And then to have the rent-a-cop sit there and tell us that we weren't allowed to eat our Auntie Himes pretzels that we had bought when we walked into the door. We were all by ourselves, big wide open area. There's nobody there. And he come out of his way, walked on over to us, says, you can't eat those in here. You need to pack them up and take them back outside. You got to leave the building to go eat those because you're breaking the ordinance of the mayor and the assembly.
Well, and that's just it. They've turned it into beyond totalitarianism and more into socialistic, where they get to just choose whatever they want, and it doesn't seem to affect them in any way, how they choose to spend money, how they choose to shut down things. Everything has been in Anchorage, at least, or like in this municipality, it's been just decided for us. And I don't need somebody making choices for me. I'm a grown-ass woman and I can make my own decisions. So if I want to get sick with COVID, which I already had, and now I'm over because my last test was negative, I can do whatever I want. And I can tell you, with working on airplanes, my boyfriend, he brought it home from work. And I know because I work on airplanes and I was digging out puke from before this whole thing happened where somebody barfed inside of the ventilator system, inside the vents. Like, it's not as safe as people think as it is to fly. Like, it's not great. So to try and tell me that I can't do something, how about you just leave it up to me?
I'm still floored by that. They'll serve you food on the plane.
Yeah.
We don't even have a toilet actually in our plane. They have to pee in bags. I've had to clean that out too. I work for Ace Air Cargo. And it's one of those things that you don't get to choose, what you have to clean up and what you don't. And I don't want my helpers to just do it. Just because I'm the mechanic doesn't mean that they have to do all the hard work. Like, we're all here together. Let's all get our job done and move on with our day, right? That's the thing is that, it's just not okay that you tell me that I can't eat somewhere in a mall when there's nobody else around. I mean, get the hell out of here.
No, you got.
How about I live in America and I can do whatever I want? That's why I live here.
Yeah, I understand. Especially Alaska.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of all places in the entire world, that I can assure you that lower 48 thinks much differently than what you guys think.
I know.
Most likely. Most people in lower 48 think Alaska is going to be a haven during this time. They have no clue that it is literally like California. It is literally like living under Gavin Newsom, which is the governor of California's rule. That is what Austin Quinn Davis is. That is what the assembly is. You are working under California. You are living in California. I live in Washington, and Washington isn't as liberal as your guys' assembly. You know what I mean? It's crazy. You guys literally have the Seattle City Council sitting there staring at you guys in the face, completely ignoring you, playing on their phones,
Yep.
tweeting, like
Yep.
just completely, just don't give any care whatsoever to the people of Anchorage at all. That's my opinion.
And
I'm
you're
actually scared to go to
absolutely
work
right
in
in your
Anchorage.
opinion.
I'm just
I mean, if
tired.
I
I'm
had a
tired of
choice-
these people. I'm tired of them getting away with people just pussyfooting around with them and acting like,
Yep.
oh, we won't attack you. We'll be nice to you because you guys are, you guys are on the left and you guys are real quiet. And you guys don't cause any problems. You're causing problems.
Well, that's exactly why people like myself and a lot of other people like Bert and everybody else fight, because that's just it. At the end of the day, you're not going to pussyfoot around me, and you're not going to give me horse shit. You're not going to give me a cow pie and tell me that it's an apple pie. At the end of the day, you're going to eat it yourself, because I'm going to shove it down your throat because I've had about enough of this. And it's been like this for years. They've been doing this crap for years. And so I'm so glad that Frank and that you, Philip, and that, Bert and everybody else has gotten on here and they've really tried to progress with it.
Yep. No,
and
it's
just
good.
to try and kind of circle back for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
What Bert was saying, I think that he's right. And this is exactly how I feel about it. And this is how I would be if I was a candidate, like a mayoral candidate. I think that we need to try and pick, and it's something that you said in another meeting, we need to figure out how to just have one, so that people have one person to vote on.
Yeah.
And so that way people aren't, voting on two different people.
Yeah, well, that's the surprise I was going to leave for you guys at the end here. So give everybody a motivation to watch the whole thing. There's going to be most likely a debate early next year. So it's informal at this point. I've thrown it out there just to encourage all the candidates. I don't think the candidates don't watch these most of the time, but the campaign managers do sometimes. And so I hope people will encourage all your candidate, whoever your candidate is, encourage them to debate. It's a part of the political process. It's been a part of the political process a really long time. I would really like to see a debate. Would really like to see a debate between the mayor candidates, and I think a lot of the Anchorage people would as well.
And invite us that will live stream it, that will put it on the air. If we can't get a mainstream media company like Channel 11 or Channel 2 or somebody like that to get out there and actually do it because of their COVID scaredness.
Must Read Alaska would be open to it. I know, and watching.
I'm there.
Both of them have already agreed. Suzanne Downing, her mother actually lives on the same island that I do. And so I've seen her on multiple occasions. And I believe that is something that we have considered talking about. It's really up to the mayor candidates at this point. They have to make that determination. But I think that if the people reach out and comment on their posts, and if you go and read some of the letters that have been posted between Bronson and Robbins, you'll see, as I pointed out to you earlier, Bert, is that I don't believe there's any malicious intent. I believe it's purely for the benefit of Anchorage and for the people to really pick the right person. And I think that everything you guys are talking about, but getting behind one candidate, I believe that that's their objective. So, reach out, comment on those letters, encourage them to continue down that road, because, until we actually started these conversations, I'm not sure if that would have ever happened.
Well, and they really need to, because to be quite honest, like with watching both of them, Bronson and Robbins, I'm kind of at an impasse. I talked to my mom, like I said earlier, I talked to my mom about that today, and I'm having a hard time trying to decide, do I want the Air Force guy? Do I want the small business guy?
Those are good. You've seen them both. The fact that they're both willing to come on camera and have a 1 hour long unbridled interview, and then they both want the crazy thing is I don't like normally posting unbridled information, unlike Politadick and Bert over there, but I like to edit my stuff down and make it look clean and nice. But both candidates wanted both their full videos up. They wanted both them up. They want people to see it. And I respect that a lot. Yeah,
I do too, because at least people like myself and other people got to ask questions. We felt like we were involved. They may have been questions that other people might have asked if they would have been so willing, or if they had the time to do it, if they weren't at work or something else. So I think that that's actually a really good thing. But for me right now, I'm torn between the two because I don't really know. Like, I certainly obviously don't want Dunbar, and Evans, I don't know who he is and I don't care.
Yeah.
But, between the two other guys, like, that we've been able to kind of interview, it's hard because I like different things about both of them.
Well, I think we're going to have them on again coming in 2021. I know that they're planning on doing, like I said, a private meeting. If you guys go read the letters, it seems like there's going to be some type of private meeting come up here this next week. I'm encouraged by that. I hope everyone else is encouraged by that. Everyone should be pretty happy about that news. That's a really positive thing. And ultimately, go to their pages. I'm going to get their website information, and I'm also going to get their Facebook, and I'll leave that in the comments for people so that way they can go and check them out. Get to know them. And then don't forget the school board race, right? And we're going to be finishing up here in 3 minutes. So I just want to let everybody know school board race is coming up. Mayor race is coming up. Shortly after that, you have a bunch of your assembly members in 2021 coming up for re-election. So don't forget that one either. So like we got lots of, and 2021, 2022 are going to be just incredible years for Alaska. You guys can change literally everything just because of the politicians that are coming up for re-election.
We have a chance to actually save this state, and that's what we need to be working on. I'm sorry.
That's a great way to end it too.
Not easy to save, but we have a chance to save this state. Yeah. So we really need
Bert, do you have anything you'd like to add before we end? And Noria, since you're the only female in the car, I will let you end it.
Well, I always got to put myself a shameless plug in at this point. Doing this doesn't come easy. It's not. It turned into a full-time job, and I literally want to make it a full-time job. I want to give up my past career that I've been doing for the last 20 plus years now, and I want to move into politics full-time. I want to start reporting on Alaska and the BS and be there wherever the action is happening. But that takes followers out there, subscribers, people that are wanting to help support the cause by donating, adding their support by chipping in a few dollars once a month. The more people that I can get to be subscribers, the more people that I can get to donate, the more that I keep expanding. I mean, I've taken things leaps and bounds here since I finally started taking donations in July.
Yeah.
And truly have watched things exponentially grow on my end. Brand new video cameras, wireless mics, new laptops, televisions, building the studio here behind me. All of these things have been made possible by donations. It's not something I would be able to financially be able to do on my own. And so go to my website, Politadick.com, and click that donate button. Whatever you can give helps. And I have a Christmas time special that only the people that watch my videos get to hear about. For every person that donates $100, leave your name, of an address to ship to, and the color of hat that you would want. And I will send you a Make Alaska Great Again hat for every $100 donation that is sent my direction.
Now that's a deal.
I love it.
That's a deal.
Well, and thank you for being so kind as to let me finish, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't just want that because I'm a female.
It's out of respect, though.
I know, and I appreciate that. That's actually very kind of you. I think that Bert's right in a lot of this, although I disagree with him on one thing. I do not want to be politically involved. I just want shit to be solved. But you can't get stuff solved if you're, not active. And I don't want to make it a full-time job. So I commend him for that for sure, because I have 100% no interest. Well, obviously I don't have 100% no interest, but I have.
Well, yeah, definitely not. I do encourage you to continue staying involved. I think you have whatever you choose to do. If you run for office or if you stay involved, and there's a lot of different areas and ways that, like, depending upon, like the community council that you're associated with, there's always that, the city assembly has advisory boards in them. There's all kinds of ways to like influence the way things are going. But honestly, what you're doing now is really effective. So just getting on here and making your points known and letting people know about how you feel and things that have happened to you and situations that have gone on, that's going to be really helpful for a lot, because I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that.
I agree. And I know that not every woman's going to agree with me, but I think that a lot of women, especially, my age group and a little bit older, maybe, they tend to feel the same way about a lot of things that I feel about. And I think that it's really important to cause that resonance in there. You know, we don't necessarily have to be politically involved completely, but, you know, or maybe run for office or things like that. But I do think it's important to value your community and value how you can try and help them.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I'm doing. And
Well, with that, I'll go ahead and close it out, guys. Thank you again for joining. Bert, Politadick, thank you. I do want to say, please go look at Politadick's site. I found him through a process of just, you know, keeping up on politics in Alaska. And like, if you care about politics in Alaska, you care about your city, you care about the people around you and the businesses. You know, that in my opinion, the one true way, one really, really effective way to solve homelessness is to work with your local businesses and the small businesses. And like, that's you know, making sure we have a thriving business community is huge. And Politadick pointed out a lot of flaws with the existing management of business in Anchorage, just in his time of shopping for Christmas. And so go to his page and look at some of the videos, look at the material, see how you know, unbridled some of his information gets.
well, good. I like it. And Bert, I thank you. And Philip, I thank you. I think that it was a very good conversation tonight. And thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Of course. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. This has been a fun one. This is like kind of what I was kind of steering the thing towards. Now we've got the credibility side of thing out of the way in regards to letting, you know, some of the big business leaders getting out there and speaking their minds regarding Alaskan throat meetings, regarding we're right. That's simple as that. And that's the problem with the Muni and the court and everybody else. They don't want to admit that we're right. They don't want to admit that the Alaskans throat meetings, like, shouldn't say we, because I'm not a member of them, but they are right. And they have a purpose and they have a reason for what they're doing. And that is to, you know, stand up for the rights of Alaskans, stand up for the rights of the Anchorage community, stand up for the rights, you know, so that way the assembly doesn't trample on you guys again. And this can never happen again. So stand up for them and help them. Check out their website. Look at what they're doing. Stay involved. Be involved in these Zoom meetings. Ask questions. Get involved. I don't care if you like it or not. That's not really my focus. My focus is making sure that you guys are aware of the problems.
Well, thank you for your focus.
All right, guys. You guys have a great evening and Merry Christmas.
You know me well enough to know you want a good conversation or you just want to chew the fat. Just anytime we can sit down and do this. Personally, I've been letting everybody know that I am going to plan it. I'm doing this on a weekly basis is what I'm setting up to do.
Very nice.
Television broadcast behind me showing clips of what some of the ones that you had shown there. I'll just pop them up on the TV screen there and get it out there for people to be able to see. And this would be a great thing to add in onto the discussions out there to make happen on a very regular basis. Start waking more people up out there. Take the questions that I'm sure you've got a huge list there of questions that people have left you while this conversation has been happening and formulate them into the next discussion that happens out there. So you don't have to spend the rest of the next week trying to answer them all.
Yeah. Well, Carrie, I just want to point out, Carrie Doris told you to reach out to her privately. So just in case you can't see the comments for whatever reason, she just said that she was not able to jump on the meeting itself. But she said she appreciates all your comments. There's been lots of comments, some good, some bad throughout the process. I haven't paid attention to them too much. So I am going to leave the video up this time. I think that there's just too much good information. And it's just lambasting the assembly, putting them on their toes, keeping government accountable, keeping government transparent. These things are all basic human rights. These are basic constitutional rights that we as Americans have, and we need to fight for them. It's our duty to fight for them. So with that, guys, I wish you guys a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I look forward to seeing you guys again.
And you too.
Have a good one.